Hey everyone. I'll give you guys just 30 seconds to settle down. Wow, those lights are bright. As you can already see, we are overwhelmed. Our tech staff is overwhelmed, our Wi-Fi is overwhelmed, our registration badges are overwhelmed, our mimosa guy is overwhelmed. By the way, if you didn't have your mimosas, now is the time to run get one. All right. You cannot hear? How about now? People in the back area cannot hear. All right. As you can tell, we are not professional conference, you know. I would be a bad conference organizer, I guess, because I let everybody in against the wishes of my registration lead. But we need to get you guys in because, oh, people in the back cannot hear? Not at all? Raise your hands if you can't hear me. Can you see me? The guys in the far back, like right next to the giant ass posters, cannot hear. How about now? If you guys don't have a chair, let me know. We'll get you one. There's one right here. Come grab one. I'll do some housekeeping while I get my thoughts together because I'm like, there's bathrooms over here. There's some more bathrooms on the outside. The outside are for the guys. The inside one are for the ladies. There's mimosas on the far entrance where you came in. We have some food. We'll give Coronas out around 10:30. I know it's early in the day, but we'll give one out to everyone because this is just overwhelming. Hopefully Hardy has plugged the refrigeration truck in the electric socket. Sorry, I'm making public announcements on the stage. But you can see that everything is in a disarray right now. We printed metal badges for you guys because we wanted you to feel special. How many of you have the metal badges in your hand right now? Do you think we should do that again? Okay, what do you guys think about those metal badges? Were they good? Because we thought about it long back, and we called somebody in China. We called somebody here in LA, and we said, like, hey, can you print these on the 9th October because we'll have all the names? And they're like, are you smoking crack? And I'm like, why? Then they're like, we don't make them here. We build them in China, and the lead time is 3 weeks. So if you purchase the tickets in the last 24, 48, or even last week, you're probably getting one of those plastic ones. So that was our plan B, and I apologize. It was not intended to make you feel inferior in any way. It's not our intent. We just didn't anticipate a house full. All the way up till August, I was thinking that this is going to be empty. So I was negotiating with the venue guys, like, can I just have the room upstairs, right? If you've been upstairs, you'll know what I mean, right? And I think I know how Uber and any startup that's actually succeeding feels, because this is your tech is behind your. So we wanted to do this for the Los Angeles community because we believe this is where we are headed, right? I personally feel that you get 3 chances in life to jump onto this is just my take. So I came to the US in 2000, so I missed the internet wave, right? I went to India in March of 2000, in 2000, I missed the internet wave, and then March of 2009, I was in India when Wells Fargo stock was just $7. By the time I actually looked at it, the stock next day had gone up to $21, right? So if you had And you were noticing that the market was crashing, right? So I am closer to 40 now. So I'm thinking that, you know what else can I get? So this is my philosophy. My father used to say, you'll get 3 chances. I think this is the 3rd chance. All right. All right, we're back. All my emotions are out. Okay, great. Housekeeping. Let's do it really fast. If you have VIP badges, come right up front. All right. We try to fit as many people as we can. If there are no chairs but you're VIP, grab a chair and come right up front, and we'll try to accommodate you. We have some overflow room right upstairs, so you can stand up there as well. People in the far back, I again apologize because you have the planes in your line of sight. I wish we could remove them, but they are actually one of a kind, so we are not even allowed to touch them. In fact, I can't even see them. That's how delicate they are. We have demo booths behind the big posters. One of the things that I always see in a conference that I have gone to is I don't know the speakers that well. So our objective there is to let you know that those are our speakers. I mean, yes, everybody knows Tom Cruise and all of that. We don't need to print them. But there are some people, there are some companies that are doing a terrific job, and we want you to know who they are and basically reach out to them. We'll ask the guests to mingle with you, and we'll ask the speakers and the VIPs to mingle with you, but just bear with us. If you can't meet them today, they'll definitely be here tomorrow. It's a 2-day event, by the way, guys. I know some of them kept asking me, is it just for 1 day? It's a 2-day event. Some of you have purchased 1-day workshops. Our idea behind that was for Los Angeles, 2nd week of October, we asked the mayor to declare it as the blockchain week. And we'll see where that goes. But we'll try it again, right? So why are we doing this conference? I think, and you guys can also see this, that there's an overwhelming need in the Southern California market for an event which caters to the decentralized, immutable, transparent community, right? You always have to fly to San Francisco. If you have a little bit more money, you're going to go to New York. If you're really rich, you'll go to London. If you're ultra wealthy, you'll go to Dubai. But what about the Los Angeles folks? There's nothing here, and we are one of the 3 largest cities. So this is our proof of work, if you want to call it. We want to show that the community is here, the community is live and well, and we want the companies to come and work with the developers here and ensure that the community works together and moves forward together. And that's our proof of work to show everybody else that this can happen here. And I'm not sure why we never had a conference on blockchain-related topics here, but we should, and that's how we got here. I want to thank our sponsors, especially Stan Miroshnik. I don't know where he's sitting, from Element. I want to thank Jeff McDonald from NEM. I want to thank David Waxman from Waxman PR. I know it sounds a little bit borderline that we don't like sponsors, we don't like advertisements, but you have to keep in mind that without them, this wouldn't have been possible. Yes, I started out with a huge risk. The risk was a 2-bedroom apartment in San Bernardino, which I was willing to give to get the conference going. I know there's a distinguished guest waiting to come right after me, and I don't want to keep him waiting, but I also want to give my sincere thanks to Brock Pierce and Jason Calacanis. They were the two I would say, speakers who on the spot said, Kurt will be a speaker. So I walked up to Jason and I said, Jason, would you come to BlockCon? I just made up the name because I thought Comic-Con was cool. So he's like, what's BlockCon? And I said, it's Comic-Con for blockchain. So he said, fine, let's do it. And then I said, okay, this is going to get me into hot trouble now, because if I don't do it, he's not going to believe anything else I say later on. So one thing led to another, and now we are here. So I welcome you all. And I, again, profusely apologize for all the mix-up that's happening. The Wi-Fi is not working, and I told you all of that twice already. But I want to invite Brock Pierce up on stage and say a few words.
Shut.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't just commit that easily to things. Kurt, we met at a Capital Group event, and we continued to meet repeatedly, actually at Jason Kelcanis's events, which, as a friend, I've tried to attend now. I think I've been speaking on blockchain. Turn more volume, I think. The back can't hear. But I would speak at Jason's events for the last 3-4 years on crypto-related things, and I kept seeing Kurt there, just hustling to help every entrepreneur he could. And when you start to see interesting people that are going out of their way to pay it forward for everyone else they can, with every free minute they have in their day, and they ask you for something, those are people you bet on. And it didn't cost me anything other than saying, hey, I'll show up for whatever it is that you do. And I just want to thank Kurt for everything he's done and everyone else that's contributed to this event. I've been building tech in Los Angeles since the 90s, raised $88 million in 97 through 99 in LA tech. When I should have moved to the Bay Area, I consistently didn't, because I always thought that content would be king, or something that was happening in LA and its diversity, its greater complexity, its scale would lead to it being something that mattered more to the future than it has historically. And today is, I think, a testament to that. Silicon Beach has never really stuck, and if I have my way, we'll be calling this Blockchain Beach soon enough. This is for the lawyers. Everyone can read that in the back. Wonderful. I want to just take you through at least a part of my journey and what's led me here, and that is by taking you back in time to the video game ecosystem. Online games are persistent worlds, which is how I found myself here, and that is that you have intangible objects in these games, virtual currency, virtual goods. And in video games, and I grew up playing games, you didn't actually, it didn't have any value because it was you and the machine. What happened is when we started networking the game as well as making it persistent, meaning you'd log on and come back and those assets would continue to persist. And I spent, all of my adult life for the most part in that space, and here's a new film coming out.
I struggled for years trying to explain what it was I was doing.
Usually I just say I work with video games, because if I say, I'm a virtual currency broker, people just kind of look at you like, what?
You've got games that are based entirely on selling gold on Facebook. Virtual worlds are creating demands, and somebody's going to have to meet those demands. They don't. Somebody like me would.
It was at that time that I realized that people spend money on virtual things no differently than they would for tangible things. That was kind of that eureka moment for me. And that's really my company was on its way to doing $100 million in revenue.
And they said, so what you got to do, you got to take all the profit you made, and you got to give it to us, or we're going to sue you for money.
But I always looked at this as something that could go poof instantly.
From play money, I guess, to real money. But some of this is interesting. So in my early 20s, I built up in China a 400,000 person supply chain that were playing games like World of Warcraft and Second Life and things professionally to mine digital currency that I was selling all over the world. early 2000s, I was PayPal's largest customer in the world for 3 years, Google's largest advertiser for a little while, basically built Alipay and a handful of other things. And that's what eventually led to me getting into this business. So let's talk about what are the things that are happening today that make this so interesting. What's different than kind of everything else? And it's this combination of macro trends. And if you want to understand where the world is going, try to understand what are the drivers. And one of the big ones is this concept of open source software. We're moving from a world of building proprietary things for me or my company to benefit me and, my shareholders or whatnot, to a world of open source things where I don't have to keep rebuilding and recreating the wheel. I can start to leverage other people's work in a way that we can co-collaborate and hopefully make the world better. And this is a big thing that's happening. And historically, open source software, which I think has already proven that it's vastly superior, hasn't basically replaced everything because it's voluntary, meaning the people that work on open source technologies today are volunteering their time, either because they want social credit or they want some sort of bragging rights or philanthropic sort of things that they just want to be a part of. But the problem is when everyone has to contribute their time for free, some people still need to eat. And so what's happened here in this space is we've added the incentivization layer to the open source movement. You can now make more money building open source software, working for yourself, volunteering your time to whomever you choose, and do better than working for someone else. That's a very, very big change, and the entire world is going open source. This concept of, again, proprietary ownership. I need to own that car. I want that big house. We're moving to a world of shared things where we can, be more efficient in how we utilize, the things that we are making in this world, which is a positive thing. And lastly, we're moving from a world of centralized systems to decentralized systems. Everybody in the world was an entrepreneur for the most part up until the Industrial Revolution. It's the Industrial Revolution that created these giant centralized institutions beyond just the church and state. And we're flattening the world again now. I want to focus on this one in particular. I'm one of the founders of Blockchain Capital, and our logo is now a digital starfish. If you're not following decentralization, you should read this book. It's called The Starfish and the Spider. And the idea is if you cut the leg off a spider, what happens? It walks with a limp. A second leg, more of a limp, and its head, it's dead. Now with a starfish, on the other hand, if you cut that leg off, it'll grow back. But if you cut off any part of the center of this starfish with that leg, it'll become a new starfish. If you cut it 5 ways through the center, it will become 5 starfish. And this is this idea of decentralized systems occurring naturally in nature. It's the resilience of them. It's their censorship resistance and such, where the world is moving from big centralized systems with, central authority and control that, isn't a bad thing, but corrupts over time, to decentralized and distributed systems. Might be worth just talking about this one today because we've had a lot of forking lately, and forking leads to spooning or something. But forking isn't bad. Forking is actually essential. None of us would be here today if it weren't for forking and spooning. No, it's when a baby is born, it's a fork. And not all forks are bad, and progress comes from it. It's when we have contentious forks, which also sometimes lead to progress. It's just messy progress. And when it's open source and you see how the sausage is made, it might be not so pretty. But just understand that this isn't a bad thing. This is how progress is made. This is how in decentralized systems, if you don't like leadership, you can change it. And so we're seeing the earliest examples of this. Don't sell your coins if you're not sure what you're doing. Just hold them all because you don't know for a while. Everybody wants me to talk about numbers, so I'll do a couple of these. All the world's top VCs are investing. There's one that was left off this list, which is Sequoia. They're in. Congratulations. Welcome to the party. But this is the data that I found compelling for a while because everybody would say, oh, overnight success, overnight success. Trust me, working full-time in this space the last 6 years has not been overnight, and nor has it been easy, and in most cases resulted in anything but success. But venture capital started coming into this space in 2014 on numbers that were similar to the internet in 95, and in 2015, similar to the internet in 96. And those are the sort of data points and comparisons you want to look for to try and draw analogies and things that will help you, hopefully find insight. The big difference, though, is back then, it cost you $5 million to build a website to sell anything online. Today, because of open source, because of things like Amazon Web Services and, blockchain-based, storage and the things that are coming, this is going to be done very cheaply. But the time that it takes to plant those seeds, water them, and turn them into the bridges, the roads, and the infrastructure has taken this time. We now have that. We're now ready to scale, but you'll see in 2016 we flatlined. And that's because the generalist VCs said, I don't see enough revenue. Where are the exits? Where are the exits? I've got exposure. And so as the entrepreneurs were coming in, and better ones, this is the stuff that kept giving me conviction to keep working through difficult times, because I kept seeing new amazing people voting with their feet, walking away from million-dollar opportunities, and that's what you ultimately want to see. You're looking for reassurance. None of us are certain about anything, unless we're maybe crazy, but what happened is the VC stopped investing. And so the entrepreneurs, being tenacious, did what they're supposed to do, which is find another way. And that's where the ICO model came back. I was one of the founding board members of Mastercoin. J.R. Willett invented the idea. We were the first ICO back in June of 2013. And it really wasn't something that took off in a meaningful way for a while, because it was something you did if you had philosophical views about where the market was going and the technology that would drive it, or because you couldn't raise money anywhere else. And so last year, we had 64 ICOs raising a little over $100 million. And, again, that was similar. It was philosophical views or people that couldn't raise money elsewhere. And that doesn't mean they didn't have talent. It's just they didn't have options available. But one other thing happened that I've excluded from this list, and that is the DAO. The DAO is an example of what not to do. Make sure you get security audits. Make sure there's not a lot of room for error in this space. And the consequences of making a mistake like that may cost you your life. One thing, again, if you're working in this space, make sure you got proper legal advice. Make sure you have legal counsel. Every time I've spoken, publicly since 2013, when people said there's no regulation here, I've said, yes, there is. There are a lot of laws from the 1930s, 40s, et cetera, that do exist, and they may be relevant to you. And the consequences for some money laws, a number of them actually in the world, are one of two things. It's either the death penalty or life in prison. The consequences in this sector when you're playing with monetary systems are extreme, beyond your imagination. Make sure you're getting advised. It's really important. But what happened with the DAO is something else very fascinating, and that is that they raised an extraordinary amount of money, more than $100 million in their ICO, and that sent a very important message to the market. It said that this model scales, even though they did it wrong. But the model scales, and it's caused entrepreneurs that might get a term sheet from Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia, Goldman Sachs, whoever it might be. Think of your dream investor, whoever that might be, Mark Cuban, whatever. You might say that this is a better model now. You may forego that in exchange for this new thing because it might be bigger and better. And so, what happened this year? The numbers obviously have gone through the charts. We're probably at about $2.5 billion, $3 billion, seem to be happening in terms of resources contributed to projects in this space. And I like this one. This chart is venture capital versus ICOs in the early stage. ICOs are delivering resources to innovators around the world at a rate 4 times greater than venture capital. At Blockchain Capital, having seen this trend occurring, and having seen all these utility tokens, many of which I don't like, and I don't like the structure. I don't have a problem with utility tokens, but I think the model can improve. I think we can do better, and I think a lot of people were creating convoluted structures for the purposes of circumventing securities law, which I think in many cases they did compliantly. But what they did is they made an inferior product. They didn't offer their customers, their users, their community everything they can. And so we did this BCAP thing more as an experiment and to show people a model that you can fork, that you can run with, that you can copy. This is open for all of you. This is not something proprietary. Take advantage of it, please. But that was doing BCAP's third fund as an entirely digital security offering. We utilized the Jobs Act, Regulation D and S specifically, full offering memorandums, the things to do it compliantly. And, in 16 minutes, half an hour, we raised our third fund from, a ton of people across 80 countries, and wanted to show people that venture capital is kind of dead in its historical form. But going forward, the structure is going to go away, but the role of helping entrepreneurs and innovators will not. We're going to continue to, they're going to need resources, they're going to need advice, they're going to need connections, they're going to need mentorship. But the digital security thing, I think, is a big deal. And this is the one that I think is most interesting, not as much to LA, but to the rest of the world. This is a global phenomenon. But why that matters is that most of the world's innovation currently comes from the West Coast of the United States. And it's not because we're smarter. It's not because we're better. It's because the capital to finance innovation has been here. And so we've had an advantage over everyone else in the world, and that advantage is about to go away. And that is that anyone in the world, if the next Einstein, Mozart, Mark Zuckerberg is in Africa, from anywhere in the world, the best innovators are now going to have access to actually build. Where you're born is not going to be the thing that determines your ability to get shit done. I want to talk briefly about kind of my latest significant project, which is BlockCon. We're making a thing called EOS. And the reason I want to talk about this is I want to talk about some structural issues, nothing to do with the technology in the world. And that is this centralized system where you've got 3 parties all interacting through that central server. And this is more or less the way the entire world is architected. And I think I can directly attribute many of the problems in the world to the corporation itself. And that's not to say corporations are bad. They came out of the Industrial Revolution, and the railroad barons are the ones that created the corporation to be able to bring in the capital. And we talked about how the world used to be to what it's become. It was the Industrial Revolution that drove a lot of this. And it was this system where you have, a customer, an employee, and a shareholder. A customer, wants the best products and service, often the cheapest, preferably for free. I want my MTV. Then you've also got the employee that wants to do work that they feel good about, but ultimately wants to be paid as much as they possibly can for their services. And you've got the shareholder, who ultimately just wants to take 100% of the profit to the extent they can, more if possible, right? And so you've got this misalignment of interest between these parties. And I think most of the world's problems come from this. Most of us that have done any business understand when there's an alignment of interest between the 2 parties, that relationship is typically going to work well. And when there's a misalignment of interest, no matter what the contract says, it's normally going to end in tears. And so the corporation, when you start to think about the structural, the foundation of the world, is I think where the problem lies. And so my partner, Dan Larimer, introduced this idea of what's called a DAC, or a Decentralized Autonomous Corporation or Organization. He invented the term in 2014 while doing BitShares. He eventually built Steemit before doing EOS. And I think that this is, the thing that can fix structurally a lot of what's wrong in the world. And it's because you're open sourcing everything. And in that open source sort of world, you're delivering things like transparency and auditability and inclusiveness, the things that are ultimately, the objectives that we should be striving for. And in doing that, you've aligned all the interests, because what happens is, to be a customer of a DAC, to be a token holder, normally you have to be, a token holder to be able to buy that product or to participate in that ecosystem or that tribe in some way. But to do that means I'm probably benefiting from whatever that ecosystem does and however that token appreciates. And so I've gone from being a customer, and I've somehow inadvertently become something that looks a little bit like a shareholder. And now that as a customer and a shareholder, imagine if you can only buy Apple products with Apple stock. How that would change the nature of the relationship between the customers and the company. And so now that I've done that, now that I actually have upside in everything that ecosystem or tribe is doing, I'm feeling compelled to contribute. Whether that means I want to go tell my friends about the things that we're doing, or maybe I want to start building apps and things on top of that platform. I want to start figuring out what superpowers or skills I have that I can contribute to this project. And I start to look a lot like an employee, but in this future that we're building, there probably aren't going to be jobs. The jobs are going away, and that's not a bad thing. You're going to end up with tribes that you get to participate in, and you're going to wear and participate in those things that are important to you. But what happens is you get this complete alignment of interests where it's no longer about me anymore. It's not about that proprietary, how do I capture value? Oh, I've got some knowledge that I can trade on for my benefit. What happens is when you realign everyone's interests, anything you do benefits me. Anything I do benefits you. And so we move from a world of me to a world of we. And when you start to do this reconstructing of incentives in the fabric or the foundation of the world in which we live, you can actually make things a hell of a lot better. When you start to think about, why you're here and what the opportunity is, it's this sort of stuff. We're rebuilding the world at its foundation. And so when you're building any of your DACs or building your ICO or any of the things that you're doing in this space, remember that you're building a community. The only way your project will succeed is if you bring in lots of people to participate with you and join. The difference between the successful projects and the unsuccessful ones are going to be around the leadership and their ability to build huge followings. It's probably not going to be because they have the best technology. These are big communities, and I want to play this real quick. Volume, please.
Then let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes, and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out, you bring ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. But over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
I think that's important. I'm one of Satoshi's first followers, as I hope many of us are. But I also want to talk about something else here. Everybody's making lots of money and doing probably very well if you've been in this space at all lately. If not, probably reevaluate the decisions you're making. But I've been spending a lot of my time, wanting to meet every billionaire I can and future billionaire, like a lot of people out there raising money, except for a billionaire to me is not someone with $1 billion. I don't care what money you have. A billionaire to me is someone that's going to positively impact and change the lives of 1 billion people. A unicorn to me is not a $1 billion market cap company. It's a company that's going to positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. When you're building communities, that's what it's about. And if you successfully are doing amazing things in the world and succeeding at those things, trust me, abundance and money will follow. Because there's a paradigm shift occurring. And that is this old adage that money is power is changing. Having money won't get you a seat at my table. I want to know what your superpower is. I want to know what you're going to do to, to use those skills that you've developed and refined over the course of your lives to positively do something in the world. If ever you want to pitch me your deal, the right way to do that is not to say, hi, my company is X, Y, and Z, and I'm doing blank, and I've got an ICO. Will you please advise me? If you actually want to pitch me, please listen to this. Introduce yourself by telling me what your superpower is. Meaning, tell me what you're really good at. Tell me what skill you have. I don't want to get to know you by your company. I want to get to know you by who you are. Tell me what you're amazing at. Tell me what your skills are. Then tell me how you're going to apply those skills that you've refined to do something positive in the world. And then finally tell me, if we're still having a conversation, exactly what that company that you're working on is today that will most likely fail. No, 90% of startups fail in their first 3 years. This is going to be no different. So tell me what you're good at and how you want to use that skill, and what your current project is, which may or may not succeed, but that's the proper way to meet someone. There's this concept of how to get to know people. If you want to succeed at pitching potential people, just start by doing a better job of it, which is introducing yourself properly. And that is that in this new world, money is no longer power, technology is power, consciousness is power, community is power. I like talking about this concept of ikigai, and that is finding your life's purpose, and that's what's going to happen in this world of tribes. The stuff that you're going to be a customer of, the stuff that you're going to contribute to, the stuff that you're going to keep your store of value in are going to be the things that where you find this middle point, which is what the world needs, what you love, and what you're good at. And if you find the middle of that, you'll clearly be paid. I like this concept as well. It's another Japanese term. I love Japanese culture and food and everything else. But Kaizen, it's the concept of change and better, but that means continuous improvement when combined. Every single thing you do, show up and try to be the best you possibly can be. Everything you do, try and improve on it, to the extent you can. And I don't mean recreate the wheel every time, but always be improving. Every situation that you have in life, how do you make it better? Which I think is an important one in this ICO madness. How do you make it better? Another thing, if you want me to be interested in your deal, is tell me what you're doing differently than the last person. My wife, Crystal Rose, will be talking today, but she did something that blew me away. And that is that instead of offering her pre-sale to whales first, she offered her pre-sale to developers first. She said, I'm in my pre-sale going to be developer only. You have to provide your GitHub activity, etc., and you get into the deal. Developers got in first because they're the most important people from her perspective in building her community. Not my idea, but that's the point. You can all do that. Find a way to do something better than the last person. Don't do the same thing over again. And there's a lot of other things that you can do in that process. And that is, I think financial reporting is an important one. I think the market is softening right now, and you feel maybe as you're looking at deals that maybe something's wrong, and there is. You're not comfortable handing over tens of millions of dollars to someone with a white paper and having no form of governance whatsoever existing there, or minimal governance. And I think one of the things that we can all do to be better is just start by committing to actually disclosing some details about what you've done with the money. If you want me in the deal, this is kind of important. Show me that you're going to issue quarterly financials. Show me that you'll get that audited at the end of the year. So I know you aren't giving yourself multi-million-dollar salaries. You're not buying boats, and you're not spending it on parties. We don't have any recourse. At least be transparent. This is a market about transparency. So lockups investing, I think we're already at that point. If you don't have that sort of stuff in there, you're already kind of a dead ICO in my opinion. You haven't done what's already been proven to be best practices. If we want to keep upgrading, if we don't want to have a 1999-2000 bubble burst, the way we avoid that is by self-regulating and hold ourselves to an ever-rising bar that we all raise together. Transparency and reporting. And then going forward, obviously, there's things like smart contracts where we can have milestones and KPIs, et cetera, but we can't get to that point until we have some sort of post-ICO governance, because startups need to pivot. And if you committed to delivering X in the next year, or escrowed funds would be returned, that doesn't work, because you have to have a governance structure in place to be able to amend things. But at a minimum, number one and number two, no one's doing transparent yet. There's not a deal that's been committed. So I hope if you want to stand out and lead and be leaders, do that. I also like this whole concept of who are we? You know, because I find myself always surrounded by an interesting group of people, and I tend to avoid any of the political discussions because I don't affiliate myself really with any of these concepts. But, you know, I meet anarchists, and I get along wonderfully with anarchists. I meet libertarians. I get along wonderfully well with them, too, and members of the Green Party, and Democrats and Republicans, and even communists sometimes in terms of their Marxist views. It's called, there's something, we all have these old sort of world labels and terms we use to describe ourselves, but what I've noticed is there's something about everybody in these rooms and with the people with whom I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the years where we may have used historical labels to describe ourselves differently, but we had something in common, something bigger, something that superseded all of these old terms, something new, maybe something better. And, you know, I was in Ibiza with a group of us the other day, and we wanted to try and do a couple of, you know, we wanted to do something special at this, you know, sort of gathering of a new intentional community. And this was one of it, is how do we describe who we are? And we'll be releasing sort of a manifesto on this. And the working title we have, and this is something that will be released on GitHub and something that everyone is welcome to participate in, but the term that we think that makes sense, at least today, is decentralists. You know, to distribute the administrative powers of functions of a central authority over a less concentrated area. And, you know, I think the thing that, you know, we all have in common right now is we understand that distributed power and distributed authority probably is better than what we currently have. And this is at least the working title, and I encourage everyone to get involved. A couple of predictions, people like this sort of stuff. I think we'll see over 1,000 ICOs this quarter. I said that we'd see over 4 billion raised in London, and I like when I keep seeing my own numbers quoted when I pulled them out of my... well, 10 billion next year. I think security tokens, this is an important one. I think that when you're evaluating your project, don't say, how do I, you know, pass the Howey test, or how do I be a utility token? Ask yourself what's best for your users, what's best for your community, and work backwards from there. And if a security token is what makes the most sense to your community, be a security token. If a utility token makes the most sense, be a utility token. But always operate from the perspective of what's best for your community. If you do what's best for you, I promise you'll fail down the road. And that reach venture capital and all that stuff's going to go away. Oops. I want to just touch on this since I'm talking too long. How many of you know what this event is? This is an event called Burning Man. If you look closely at my boots today, I'm wearing Playa Dust. But for those of you that don't know what this is, Burning Man is built on decentralization principles. If you haven't been, this is something you may not know. But this is the greatest experiment, I think, happening on the planet today when testing new forms of governance. And that's not to say they're perfect. We're running tests, just like all of us as entrepreneurs. These are multivariant tests. Some are going to be good ones that should be repeated, some not so much. But if you want to ever be inspired, there's no place that will demonstrate what humanity is capable of in a way that will touch you more deeply than this, a world without money where everything can be done differently. And I want to just touch on this real quick.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time. You would have every kind of pleasure, you see.
And so I firmly believe that the blockchain is a technology that will change the world. That's far bigger than the internet. I mean, think of the old internet as basically just a system for insecure data transmission, and the blockchain is now the system for secure data transmission. It's going to replace everything because it's just the upgraded version in a world where security matters. But technology is an enabling thing. It isn't conscious. It doesn't know good or bad. Money isn't bad either. It's an enabling tool. It's what we do with it that matters. And so we have an opportunity to change the world. And the future could be very good or very bad, and it will be determined by those of us who build it. And so I beg you, I plead with you to operate with integrity in this new world of abundance that we're creating. You do not need to compromise your integrity for anything and ever. And this is a big family for those of you that are newcomers and don't understand how it works. Those of us that have been building this system for a while look after each other. And we are about radical inclusion. Everyone is welcome, but operate with integrity. And that's basically the main requirement in this space. Because we're not competing. Even if the person sitting next to you wants to do the same thing as you, you are not competing. It's multivariant testing, and you're taking two different approaches to solving the same problem. And if you think that person operates with integrity and is talented, you should be participating in their token sale too. You know, you're not competing. The only people we compete with are people that show up here and don't operate with integrity because the future depends on it. And I encourage you to dream. Thank you, Peter, for these shots, and Laura, and Isaiah. And we believe, dream big. You know, people have been calling me a magician lately because they don't know what other title to give me, but magic is real. You can make it, I promise. The EOS logo is a chestahedron. The chestahedron is the sacred geometrical shape of the heart discovered in the year 2000. You wouldn't think that new geometry is being found this recent in time, but the reason we selected that symbol is because we love what it represents. If you're going to build a technology to change the world, let's do it with love and heart. And let's not forget about this place that we all share, and at least try to be the best stewards we can be of the systems and the communities and such that we operate from. And I, again, encourage everyone to believe we can change the world and everything is possible. This is my wedding at Burning Man last year. Not this year, but the year before, 2 burns ago. It was an all-unicorn wedding. Bridesmaids, groomsmen, color of the rainbow plus pink. My best man there, might be somewhere in the audience, was dressed in black, cracking a whip. But I think it's, you know, in terms of the blockchain technology is that thing that can change the world. I think it's Burning Man culture or something akin to it that will save it. Thank you. And if you have any other questions for me, you can always find me at brock.ai. The artificial intelligent version of me there is to answer any questions you have. Have a wonderful conference. Thank you all for being here.
I have 2 questions for you. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you.
For the folks who are out here, what are the 2 things they can do right now when they go back home or at their work that can get them to where we want the community to go?
Well, I mean, the main thing is if you're new, you don't necessarily understand how these communities function. They function, and it's a family. In a world where it's about open source and it's about sharing of information, it's about contributing. If you're new, the main thing I would encourage you is don't show up and thinking that there's some fear of missing out. You are not late. If you are in this room, you are early. There's only 10 or 20 million people in this space. Do not panic. Don't go run in and start putting your money into things that you don't understand. You are not late. And don't go jump into the first project. If you're new to this space and you want to learn, start meeting people and figure out how you can help. Don't ask what you can get. Figure out how you can take the skills that you have to contribute to the projects that they're working on, and don't commit. You know, sleep around it. You're new to a space. Get to know people, and if you're like, this feels good, you may want to do more of it. But get to know people, and at some point, once you've been in the space for 6 months or a year, you're eventually going to start to get a strong intuition, and you're going to start to understand the things that make sense to you and the things that you want to do more of. And, I mean, that's the first thing is figure out, go meet a bunch of people today, and don't ask what they can do for you. Figure out what you can do for them.
Thank you, Brock. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Hi, my name is Kismet Valentina, and I'm a sixth grader student. The next panel is Identity, Pitfalls, and Best Practices. Vinny from Civic will give a quick 3-minute demo. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, hello. Thanks, guys. How's it going? This is a last-minute edition. I was asked to do a quick demo, so I'll do this, and it shouldn't take 3 minutes because it's really quick. Can we get the WikiHow screen up? Cool. So this is our biggest partner so far. They've got over 150 million monthly active users worldwide. And Civic is a digital identity platform tool. It allows you to store your ID credentials on your phone with a set of private keys so you can get rid of usernames and passwords, and eventually soon you'll be able to hopefully sign up for bank accounts, exchange accounts without having to give up your passport information, your driver's license, your social security number, etc. And we're launching that pretty soon, but for now I'll show you a quick demo of how Civic works. So when you go to the website to sign in, please click the Civic link. There we go. I've got the app on my phone. It pulls up a simple QR code on the screen. Let me scan it. Yeah. Cool. And there we go. Logged in. So as simple as that. So if WikiHow got hacked tomorrow, there's no username and password for the hackers to steal and use on other websites. It's really quick. You can use this hopefully for banking and other services as well. And the only way that someone can gain access to your account is to steal the private keys physically off your device. Obviously Apple's pretty secure, and Android and malware is less of a concern. But the biggest thing about Civic is that we're moving away from centralized databases like Equifax, Experian, etc., where all your information is stored in one place, to decentralize on your device. Civic doesn't even know that transaction happened or that login attempt happened. Your information is only in one place. And so if one person does get their phone stolen or whatever the case is, they don't create systemic risk for everyone else on the network. Only their information gets stolen and hacked, and even then it can be revoked remotely as well. So that's a quick demo on Civic. I'll be up later on. Thank you.
Now Justin from Netgear will give a quick 3-minute demo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Justin. I'm the founder and CEO at Netkey. So what we've been focused on around digital identity is really providing digital identity services for blockchain companies, be they wallets, be they exchanges, or be they people doing ICOs, to build into their own experience to help them meet their risk and compliance needs. So what we've got, wow, the video says demo censored. I wondered what the uncensored version is. What we have here is a demo of some work we did for a blockchain company down in the Caribbean called Bit. But this is similar to work we do for a number of others in the space. So why don't you go ahead and just play the video, please.
In order to meet the requirements of your unique use cases, it can be readily customized as was done for Bit. It can validate your country's IDs, driver's licenses, social security numbers, or other identity information. The app is easy to use and intuitive for your customers. Using their smartphone, they simply take a scan of the front of their ID, then a scan of the back of their ID. And because this is an app in 2017, a requisite selfie.
and then when we're going to run the demos, they just ask to switch over to it. You guys will run that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, just give us the cue. And
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay.
Now Armin from Showcard will give a 3-minute demo.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Armin Ibrahimi. I'm the founder and CEO of Showcard. We're a Bay Area startup, started in 2015. What I'm going to show you is our app for digital identification. And basically the concept is that you grab identity information, you scan that through a driver's license, passport, whatever the documentation is. The data gets loaded on your phone, doesn't go anywhere else. I'm going to show you the app on the phone here. I think if I put it here, so you actually see my own ID. Does it show up there? Could we get that reflected back up on this stage? There we go. So there's my driver's license, my own passport, my own personal card that has some of that information. I know you can't quite see all of it there, but the metadata is not, and it's hard to actually see the data down here for any of that. Let me see if the driver's license looks any better. You can't see the data there, but what we do is we basically extract all the metadata so you could decide what it is that you're going to share with regards to your ID. You can get other things like bank cards and other information also scanned. Some of those I won't show you because it's got my actual bank cards on it, but we work with a lot of financial institutions, airlines, and so on for being able to scan your information, get certified once, but being able to use those in real-time transactions afterwards. What happens is your data is encrypted and kept on your device, but we don't ever trust any device. So what happens is servers and service providers will end up looking on the blockchain to see is that data certified. And what we put there there's no encrypted data that we put on the blockchain because eventually you could hack into those, but there's digital signatures of one-way hashes of data that's on the blockchain, and that stands as your certification. You do that as a self-certification of your data. A third party, like a bank, a government, does the same thing. With that, if we could switch over to the demo, and you'll actually see a demo that, not a demo, but a video that will actually describe some of the functionality a little bit more.
Identity theft and fraud brings institutions, businesses, and merchants losses that cost up to billions of dollars each year. Some authentication methods do not work well and are not secure against hackers. Consumer-friendly, secure, and always on. This is Showcard. Showcard is a consumer-friendly and secure app that's built to support mobile, desktop, or even brick-and-mortar transactions well. This easy-to-use mobile app can even be relied on by some of the biggest banks. It can be integrated with different mobile apps to improve the authentication process. It helps cut costs and fraud losses. For credit card transactions, Showcard helps verify the individual's identity and authority to use the card. It also features authorization with facial recognition, which can confirm the user's identity and authority to perform high-value transactions without having to go to a bank's branch. Showcard's call center authentication solution allows customer care groups to authenticate users in just a matter of seconds over the phone. Showcard is also passwordless. Users can just simply register for and log into websites, stores, institutions, and more. The Showcard platform is built on a public blockchain data layer, so they do not store data or keys that will compromise the user's security. All data is hashed and digitally signed and stored on the blockchain, so it cannot be tampered. Everything is kept on your phone and not on some shady database, so your personal data cannot be hacked or compromised. Visit showcard.com and know the Showcard difference.
Thank you.
Now we have Rovan from Uport will give a 3-minute demo with us.
Thank you, and also thank you to everyone here in Lithuania and Vilnius. I've been here for the first time. I've been here about a day now. Beautiful city, very friendly people, so I appreciate that. And hopefully I can be back here again.
Hi, my name is Ruven. I work at Consensus on the digital identity project called Uport. I will not give the demo now. We do two things. We do also identity, so for login and other things, what you have seen now several times. But since Consensus purposes, we are building Ethereum-based applications of all different types. So our focus is not only on the identity part, but as well being an interface and a tool for using Ethereum applications. So I have a talk tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and I will show the interaction with blockchain using our application. Thank you.
Yeah, we're all doing a panel now.
We roll up now.
Okay, give me a second. We're going to reset the stage.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, here we go. Thanks, everybody. We're excited to be here today. We're going to jump right in now with a panel here on identity. My name is Matt Larson. I'm with Microsoft and a crypto enthusiast for the past couple years. So looking forward to diving a bit deeper here around the identity topic. So we heard some, from your demos a little bit about what decentralized identity is. But first question to kick it off, why is decentralized identity better than the alternative? We got Equihacks and we've got all kinds of problems with the current system. Why is what you guys are working on in decentralized identity better than what we have today?
What do we have today? I mean, today we basically have a network of, just look at companies and start with the credit providers that are sitting with just huge amounts of consumer data piled into these databases, which are getting hacked on an ever more increasingly frequent basis. So I don't think we have anything which is worth even talking about today, if you think about it.
Let me, I'll add another point to it. I think part of it is security, right? And having central databases, we give great opportunity to hackers to hack one database, get millions and millions of records. But actually, I'll extend it a little bit more. There's a question of opportunity. When you have central databases, sharing data is very difficult. One, because of security. Who are you going to share that with? How do you make sure that nobody, like a hacker, doesn't end up accessing that data? And what do you share? So that's one aspect of it. Then you start looking at the new world, especially as we're looking at what cryptocurrencies are creating for us, what the internet has created for us, is that we are actually becoming more and more of a global world. A lot of our clients, what their requirements are being cross-border. In cases where you're not even allowed to share those central databases, new opportunities get created where users have their own data. You could travel from one country to another, grab your credit report information with you, and they can independently validate it and say, yep, the data is correct. And they don't have to contact different agencies with different central databases to get it. So I think a lot of new opportunities get created. And on top of that, it's far more secure, and users can keep data private to themselves. They only share with who they want, not the hackers or others.
Maybe one thing I would like to add is about the control. I think we put the user back into control of the identity. For now, even if it's not obvious, because we live in a world where you trust LinkedIn, Facebook, and others to control your identity, but it's not truly yours. And in certain countries, people stop giving the authority to actually use this, or they block your account. So I think that's one really key point. And the second one is building a portable reputation. So at the moment, your reputation is always with eBay, Airbnb, whatever, and now you can actually have something which is assigned to yourself, and you can take this to other services, which makes a completely different economy possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that kind of is a corollary to what you just said here is, you know, in the past on the internet, in most cases, you never got to really say anything for yourself. It was always someone else that said you said something. And so the examples I would give for that is like, you know, today you don't actually say something on Twitter. Twitter says you said that on Twitter. And Google says you said that on Google. It's never emanating from you. They're the source of authority on what you said. And, you know, because we're moving to a world with digital signatures that the user's in control of, for the first time ever, they're the ones saying things on their own behalf, right? And I think that's one of the fundamental shifts of these new platforms that is maybe in some ways parallel to some of the other benefits around, you know, preventing hacking of central databases and other things, but is really like a fundamental shift of the way that identity and speech is perceived on the internet.
So I want to add something. I think this is a pretty boring topic for most people. Okay, I mean, for us, we're kind of geeking out on identity. It's a boring topic. So I'm going to ask some questions to the audience quickly. Who has had their identity stolen and, for example, fraud committed on their credit report, something along those lines? Okay, so it's not a big part of the audience. Okay, who's been impersonated on Twitter or public forums, you know, and to that extent, like fake Twitter accounts, etc. Okay, now let me ask you the last question. Who is sick and tired of using username and passwords because they get hacked at Yahoo and everyone else can access your accounts, etc.? This is the real problem here. Isn't, you know, in the short term, it isn't what's happening in your credit report. It's the inconvenience of having to have your credit card changed, having to have username and passwords changed, having people, you know, still access one big database and be able to then access all your personal data stores, and just the time and effort. So, but here's the problem. That's the short-term problem. The reason it's a short-term problem is because you can go on the dark web right now, go buy the Yahoo database, write a bot, and go after 1,000 websites and hope that you get a hit on someone's username and password on those websites. That's the short term. The long game is what they're doing with your credit report, getting information about you and actually targeting identity theft. So you're going to see this becoming more prevalent in 2, 3, 4 years' time, given the hacks that have just happened right now. So what do we do as an industry? We need to focus on the long term, but we also need to make sure in the short term you understand why we are getting to that point and how to make your life easier right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I was reading an article, I think it was you, Vinny, in Forbes, talking about comparing digital identity to traditional identity. And when we show up at a bar, we show them our driver's license, and that, the security guy at the bar doesn't know our information, doesn't store that for later for them to be hacked, right? It's just this very transactional thing. And so that's what bringing digital identity should be, right? It should reflect identity in the real world. And I think we're all on board, right? I want to try out some new application, but I have to get my email again. I have to create a new password. So I think we're all sold. What is it? What needs to happen? What are you guys doing? Who are the companies, the partners that you guys are working with in order to, bring that to the mainstream?
I think we've come a long way since a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, when I would present and I would talk to banks and so on, we would only talk to the researchers. And these were other geeks just like ourselves who want to come in and basically just talk about the technology, and they found it interesting. We've come a long way in that in particular verticals. We've seen more movement, at least for our company, we've seen a lot more movement and adoption in the financial industry, some in the air travel. We've seen less of it in the health, but where we see the health vertical itself is a great opportunity. But it is ultimately those institutions adopting it, and adopting it for doing real transactions, and we're seeing that happening now. This is some of our partners. There's still some of them, I think you and I talked before, still stay in the closet. We can't always announce what their names are. But what they're doing is smaller deployments where they're actually doing everything from username, passwordless login, to being able to do credit card authorization, to doing KYC and sharing KYC from one financial institution with others. But it's when we start seeing those adoptions, in particular verticals, is when the doors start opening up.
We're seeing some different approaches than that, although I do agree that that's a great path as well. We're actually working on a couple of projects, or in late phases of proposals on a couple of projects around national identity platforms, where there's governments either, generally at a national level, that basically have a digital identity initiative for the country. And, they're looking at using that as a tool, first as a way to access government services, and so they can get a critical mass that way. Everyone pays their taxes, everyone has a lease, other things like that, right? And then also then over time opening that up to the private sector as ways that banks can automate their KYC, that other services that you're receiving from medical and others can make use of that platform, either directly in a blockchain-based way or over APIs as a front to get in. So I think there's different approaches that are going to take hold and take place in different jurisdictions and different use cases. And in, I think, many of the places in the world, it'll probably be driven by the private sector. And in some of the places in the world, it'll get driven by sort of a national plan.
Yeah, maybe just to add on the comments before, now we are at BlockCon, so there's a lot of blockchain things happening in the world. So I think in that sense, identity is a key part for this whole blockchain ecosystem as well. So how do you know the other party on the other side of the smart contract is relevant? For Bitcoin, it's not that required. For the more advanced things we're exploring at the moment, identity is such a key part. So I think that's where we close the loop also, like not only using the blockchain for building an identity platform, but as well using an identity platform to, build this whole ecosystem we were talking about here.
Yeah, that makes sense. And along those lines, this is, like you said, everybody's here doing something related to blockchain. You guys are sort of abstracted a bit from, public blockchains in a sense, but I think most of the outside world looks, here's the words blockchain, here's the words crypto, and immediately thinks the price of Bitcoin is dropped by 30%, right? So would you guys, when you have conversations with banks or with other companies in the private sector, is that a wall of education that you guys have to overcome? Is that a challenge, or how have you seen that shift over the years as well?
In my impression, I think a year and a half ago, it was more of a thing. I think the last 18 months have shifted most of the thinking. If people are in the space, then they recognize identity is a huge topic. If they're not in the space, they hear now more and more positive things. So the association of Bitcoin is significantly less now.
I think I agree with you. I think education has changed dramatically. A couple of years ago, blockchain meant Bitcoin, and in fact, a lot of times we said, we use blockchain as a means of creating certifications, independent validation, like what the heck is blockchain? So it's what Bitcoin was built on. So, oh no, okay, I know what that is, because they didn't even know what blockchain was. I think now the understanding has changed quite a bit. I think one of the things that's still important, and I think this is important for every product, every company, is that you got to have a real product with a real solution. So when we go to clients, we don't tell them, hey, we got a blockchain solution. That's not of interest to a lot of folks. What we do is we say, look, we have an identity management that gives you, easier to use, better safety, security, and here's the things you could do. So we talk about identity management. Then the question comes down to, well, how do you do it? And then we talk about how we use the blockchain, which is no different than the way we've used to build products before. And in fact, the rest of the world still builds products. You always got to focus on what's the solution you're building.
Yeah. So, because we do digital identity for blockchains, not digital identity on blockchains, I'm going to, again, I think, give the yes and answer, which is I agree that in 90% of the discussions that we're in, well, probably not, 75% of the discussions we're in, the price of Bitcoin, the price of Ethereum, those kinds of things don't matter at all to the project that's going on. But because we do work on public blockchains, and in particular because digital identity ties into compliance and a risk on public blockchains, what we do see is as the price of Bitcoin goes up, and to a lesser extent the price of Ethereum, Bitcoin is still driving the conversation at the institutional levels. They see increased levels of their best customers that are interested in owning and holding the asset, which are driving traditional financial services firms closer and closer to actually providing some level of Bitcoin services, be it buy, sell, be it custodial holding of keys or other things like that. And so certainly those discussions, price does play into, because the price drives interest, and interest drives what's going on with those companies. One of the things I think that's super exciting about that, as somebody that believes a lot in public blockchains and the power of public blockchains, is that I think that those kinds of institutions getting on board, it becomes a tipping point for digital currency, because the day that in somebody's bank of wherever account they see buy, sell a Bitcoin, it doubles in one day the number of people that have been exposed to Bitcoin in history, right? And the next place that does it doubles it again. And so the hockey stick starts to take off in a way that we actually haven't seen before now.
Right. The virtuous cycle of interest driving more adoption, and then it spirals out of control. So one of the next question I want to ask, you guys have been in the blockchain space for a while, sort of before this whole ICO craze came upon us. So I'd love to hear sort of some thoughts and considerations around, some of you have done an ICO, others haven't. Vinny, why don't we start with you, kind of your thoughts and considerations around choosing to take Civic down the ICO route?
I think it was a very interesting decision. We obviously looked at the landscape, and it was, I think our timing was pretty good as well. What's really changed is if you take out the nature of what our token does, but what's the fundamental change that you've seen worldwide is capital formation has changed. Okay, and in a way that I don't think we'll ever go back to necessarily one or the other anymore. It's not just VC, private equity, pension funds, etc. It's now crowdfunding to a large extent, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. If you look at how people in other parts of the world participated in technological revolutions in call it in the US, for example. So I'll give you guys an example. I'm from South Africa, born and raised there. And when I was about 20 years old, I was trading the South African stock market during 1999, which was obviously the big bubble run up. And the South African stocks were somewhat they weren't as sort of high flying as the US stocks. But the point is, I couldn't buy any US stocks. And this is 1999. I couldn't go and buy any shares of Commerce One or any of those companies because I was restricted, because I was in South Africa and you need a social security number. Do you realize that it's nearly, 20 years nearly have passed, and it's still the case? People in foreign countries, whether they have dollars, rands, whatever other currency, they cannot participate in the US stock markets or foreign markets. It's just because the way these stock exchanges are set up, it means that there's effectively a restriction. So what's happened now through the internet is capital formation has changed. If you want exposure to technology assets, you no longer need to go through a stock market. You can go buy a cryptocurrency, for example. It still gives you the edge in new and emerging technologies. And this appeals primarily to the young folks. So guys in their teens, early 20s, 30s, etc. Less so the older folks, and they obviously at that point they have more wealth accumulation, so they're looking for less risky assets. But the kids who have got $10,000, $20,000, they don't care if they lose it, but they actually want to make it $1 million. So they'll go for high risk technology assets. And so this has changed the way we view the world, because these funds can now flow from any part of the world to any other country in the world as well, using cryptocurrencies and crypto markets. And I'm very excited to see regulated exchanges coming to the fore now, where you can actually buy regulated securities and regulated ICOs on the exchanges. In the next year or two, I think it's going to be one of the most common ways of raising funding in an environment where it's been unregulated up to now. So I think that the key thread here is how capital formation has changed. Forget the use cases. And so some companies have come, and I obviously see a lot of deal flow around this. Some guys are coming and they've actually got no ecosystem, no need for a token, nothing, but they want to raise the money. And quite frankly, they can actually raise the money as a security, and so and using cryptocurrencies to fund it from 150 countries worldwide. So that's the interesting observation I would have.
Yeah, I think on your last point, it needs to make sense. And I think I've seen so many tokens which just don't make sense. It might make sense, but if you can replace it with money or with other form of payments, then it might likely be not the right token.
But the point is, it doesn't need. So the issuance of a token as a utility token is very different from the issuance of a token as a security token. Absolutely. And so I think we're going to see more and more securities being issued, because there's absolutely no reason these companies should have a utility token, but they absolutely can raise a security token and raise money as a security, and that's fine.
No, absolutely. Yeah. But I think most of the people try to avoid SEC regulations, so they try to do a utility token where, in many cases, it doesn't feel like a utility. And I think that's where some people might be like. I think if it's a equity, then you can pivot your business model. But many people are now bringing out a token, and how do they pivot over time? So that's kind of more tricky. So that's kind of the interesting part.
Let me add a couple of points here. I think we're in the very early stages. We're going to see a lot of development and maturity in the space. But there are some key things that's happening with the ICOs. One of those is that alternate forms of funding, like you were saying, Vinny, alternate forms of funding initiatives is getting created. Part of that will actually change the whole VC market. I think VCs will become more responsible, more proactive. They will be they'll have to bring in a lot more value than money. I think they will still continue to have a play in the world. But it changes the way a lot of startups get created. And some startups could have great ideas. They just can't get past that funding, or they get some funding, they don't get enough funding. Well, this gives them an opportunity to survive. I think there's a flip side to it, and I agree with what you're saying, is that whether you raise it as a security or a token, and some of those are shorter term things. I think there will be more regulation. There will be more control over that, which I think will be good for the market overall. But I think at the end of the day, we all have to remember, you're still building a company, you're still building products, you gotta have something that works. If you don't have that, and you raise a whole bunch of money, then you're not gonna succeed. So one is that you're not gonna succeed. Two, you wasted people's money. And three, eventually, you'll get filtered out and you won't be able to do that. So I think at the end of the day, whether it's a security you raise or a product, you better have a purpose for it, and you better still focus on how do you serve your consumers, how do you serve your businesses, your customers, your clients, and how do you create a real business value in it?
And I mean, maybe a final quick piece on this is I want to share in saying I think that this is a very exciting new model, particularly in the kinds of new things and the kinds of new communities that can be funded. As a result of it, the one thing I would urge is, those of you that are going to be pioneering in this space, make sure that you're getting good advice and good counsel, and that you're making sure you're doing things in a way that provides you the right protections, because you're doing the right things for the people that have invested money in your token and are depending on your services. Because there are people that are going to get washed out of this space because they're not doing things the right way. And, that is going to cause enforcement actions and all kinds of other stuff to happen. And one, you always want to be able to go to sleep at night feeling that you're doing the right thing, right? But two, you don't want to feel like, because you didn't take the proper care up front or think about the risks the right way up front, that now you're spending time looking over your shoulder worrying about what might be coming instead of being able to focus on building your disruptive innovation. It's really hard to innovate when you're spending all your time in a courtroom. So,
in the courtroom or trying to get it on a bank account, because there are many token launchers who raised money, thought they are good, and now they have trouble to actually use it because they can't.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Be able to sleep at night. Good advice. So we'll end on one final question, rapid fire round. We've seen sort of the democratization of money. I think everybody saw early on that identity would be a big part of this whole decentralization movement. What are some things that you guys, some industries or some other things that are going to be decentralized over the next coming years, and 5-10 years down the road now?
Yeah, so I work in a company, we do all kind of decentralization work. So we have projects from supply chain to music platforms, like, I don't know, everything from token launches. And I think the interesting thing is now using this kind of decentralized technology is that it's super transparent. So if someone has solved a problem and you have a smart contract somewhere, you can just reuse it. It has been security audited. So I think what we will see is that many of these components are like solved, and now we're just reusing them. And then you can build business on top of this and a much, much easier and faster pace. I think that's just general.
I have to say that in the short term, I'm actually really excited about the idea of unique digital assets or unique digital art, because it for the first time creates a way for creative people to be able to be paid for their uniqueness for online objects. And I think that's going to be exciting with what's happening in virtual reality and social and in other areas, where people can now show their appreciation to artists and others. In the long term, I'll be honest, what I'm excited about is the things that we can't picture now. When we were in the early days of the internet, it was easy to see that email was coming, and it didn't take a ton of vision to see that, video on the internet was coming. But I don't think anyone saw things like Uber or Airbnb or Pokemon Go or blockchain coming as a result of the internet. And so I think it's the things that are going to be invented by the people that don't see the same constraints that we see today as a result of the first wave of decentralization that's happening right now.
Yeah, I think I actually totally agree with you. The unknown will be some of the biggest opportunities that will get created. But I think if I were to pick on some things where I see those opportunities using the blockchain is anything that uses data. And it could be anything from the deed to your house, it could be the pink slip on your car, any kind of data you have, and you want to be able to prove something is yours. You don't necessarily want to share it with everyone. And a lot of these are not just pure digital documents, but documents that could be transformed into digital form. But you want to sell a car on eBay, but you want to be able to prove that you actually own that. But being able to show that digitally, do the transaction for both the comfort of the buyer and confidence of the buyer as well as the seller. So I think we'll see more and more applications that actually start looking at different forms of data and being able to use the blockchain as a form of decentralization of that and being able to do the validation.
I mean, for us at Civic, the ultimate goal for decentralizing things would be to decentralize democracy. Democracy is not decentralized right now. It's actually very centralized. If you look at even countries that practice democracy, there's highly centralized, pillars of power within those countries, and on a global scale, I don't think we're very much even close to being a democratic world. It doesn't mean that democracy works at scale with 7 billion people, but can you imagine, we want to discuss gun control laws, you just send a notification to everyone's phone and you have a vote right then and there. There's no more discussion, and people can we can actually make a change in the world if democracy was decentralized and there was no one holding on to power and trying to tell us how we feel about things. We can actually poll that in real time. So that's where I think we should be going with Civic anyway. We want to go to the point where everyone in the world has an identity. Everyone can respond on their mobile phone to questions about their identity or related to their identity. You can walk into a building using your phone. You can vote on your phone for governments, for company stuff, whatever. Like, you basically can use your identity and assert yourself. And that's the ultimate form of decentralization, where you have 7 billion people in the world doing whatever they feel is in their best interest and the interest of society.
That's awesome. Yeah, great note to end on. So, Vinny, Armin, Justin, Reuven, thank you very much. Let's give a big hand for our panel, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey everyone, just a quick announcement. There's a lot of noise in the background and we are short on speakers, so if you guys want to have a quick conversation, and folks right here in the VIP lounge area, if you can just, if you want to have a conversation, just move a little bit further out because it's extremely distracting for the tech guys because they're not able to look at the PowerPoint slides and the video in the back end. How's everybody doing, by the way? We wanted to serve you beer, but somebody forgot to order the bottle openers. So hang tight. And can I also request somebody in the the volunteers in the VIP area to help guys take the conversation a little bit further out? We also have a quick housekeeping from the tech guys behind. If you are walking back and forth in the aisle, just don't hit the poor guy on that camera stand because it's just shaking the camera all the time. Do you guys have any questions? Do you want us to take some questions on Twitter, or because I know the panels are going to keep going and we are like 45 minutes behind, so we are trying to understand if this format is okay, or should we allow you guys to come up front and ask a few questions? Raise hands if you want to ask questions. I see 1, I see 2, okay, 3. All right, nobody wants questions, fine. We won't do them.
Hey everyone, my name is Corbin Deary. I'm a junior web developer and a freshman in college. So our next panel is going to be on decentralized storage with David from Sciatech, Gordon from OrgCloud, Liz from Least Authority, with James and Kurt.
Do we buckle up?
You know, actually, I wanted the pilot to be here, but we miscalculated, so we have to take him out.
Oh.
You guys know why the pilot is here, by the way?
No. To fly the planes?
No, it's to the moon.
Planes don't go to the moon, though.
Should I buckle up?
Yeah, let's buckle up. You know, we're on the scene. Oh, we are sitting in the VIP, so we don't have to. Only they get it.
You guys are going down. You're going to die.
Well, if the pilot was here.
All right, cool. Well, this is the decentralized storage panel. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Gordon, James, David. Really appreciate it. Do you guys want to take like a minute and just introduce yourself? Because have you guys been to LA at a conference before?
Not I.
No, not at a conference.
No, me neither.
Just for fun.
Wow. Okay. Well, why don't we introduce ourselves? And I don't need to do the monitor, so I'll forget myself. But Liz, why don't you start?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay? It's good? Okay. I'm Liz from Least Authority. We are a company based in Germany now. We originated from the United States. We do secure cloud storage, and we also do security audits. We believe that privacy matters and that security is really important for people. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for doing this panel.
Thank you for coming all the way from Europe.
My name is Gordon Hall, and I'm the author of the ORC project. We are building a decentralized, anonymous object storage network for whistleblowers and activists to communicate safely with journalists and publish content so that it is uncensorable. Thank you.
My name is James Prestwich. I was the co-founder and COO of Storage Labs, working on the Storage Project, a decentralized object store. Right now I'm doing some general consulting in the space and have a startup that'll be announced in the next couple months.
My name is David Vork, co-founder and CEO of the SIA project, and our goal is to provide a cloud similar to the Amazon cloud, where there is no central party who has has power over your data.
Thank you, David. David, why don't we start with you first? So what's the current cost of storage? Like if you went to Amazon per gigabyte, I guess, or terabyte?
Yeah, so on Amazon today, if you were to go to and get the bulk rates, I believe you can get 1 terabyte costs $21 per month.
Okay.
And then to download that terabyte at the bulk rate, I believe it costs you $50. This can be compared to the SIA network, where today our prices are about 40 cents per terabyte per month to store. And then to download, it's like 20 cents.
So you're saying $21 per month to down to 40 cents?
That's the market price today on the SIA network, yes.
Wow. Is Amazon scared?
I don't think they know who we are.
Wow.
We're staying underground.
They'll know eventually.
So, by the way, how's the traction rates when enterprise or when, let's say, just regular startups look at this pricing scenario and they look like, wow, $21 and down to like pennies. What's the traction rate? Do they instantly jump on it and say like, hey, let me just use this, or do they have like, hey, is there a catch here? Like, what's your like sales cycle look like there?
Yeah, so when we approach what I would call like a more traditional company, so someone who's not like indoctrinated into the blockchain mindset,
right?
There's usually a lot of skepticism, especially in data storage. Your data is, as a company, it's one of your like most sensitive, most critical things that you have, and so companies are very slow to move to a new platform, and especially with only 2 years of deployment. A lot of companies, there's a reason that there are only 3 names, and it's because companies really fall back on the brand and the trust that has been built up. We're here to change that.
Got it. Go ahead, James.
So generally when you're targeting an enterprise like that for a product like storage, they want to know that you're serving customers at least twice as large as them in aggregate. So they're looking for market validation that you can handle demand of their size, and that's very difficult to get for a startup.
Would you, David, going back to that, if you go to an enterprise customer or a startup, is the conversation more like, what is blockchain, by the way? Or is it more like, yes, I understand it? Has the conversation changed since the last couple of months, years maybe?
So actually, it's usually not about blockchain at all. It's all about who's storing the data, what's the replication, like how do I know they're not going to disappear tomorrow? And the blockchain like just sits in the back.
Got it. Gordon, tell us a little bit more about your project. I know you work at Storage, and now you're starting your own project, and you're in between. So tell us a little bit more, and why does it matter?
Yeah, so I'm also the author of the Storage Protocol, and a few months ago, I always wanted that project to fill a use case that I think that wasn't compatible with the business model or a business model in general. I always wanted to use this technology to help people who really need it, and so most, if not all, of the distributed storage projects that exist today are not anonymous by default. And many of them are not resistant to censorship, as some of them claim to be, by the nature of not being anonymous. And so Orc is a fork of the version 2 of the storage protocol that has not been merged upstream into storage, so it's kind of standalone on its own now. But it piggybacks on the Tor network, and our primary design goal is anonymity and privacy. Orc is slow. I mean, it just is. And speed, while is not a primary design goal, it's something I think we can improve upon. But the primary goal here is, people's lives hang in the balance, and we need to provide tools that can protect them. And so that's the primary objective for us. We're not concerned necessarily with, we don't have a blockchain, we don't have a token. We're seeking to validate that the technology works and that it can help people now. And then later on, investigate and research whether or not it makes sense to introduce a cryptocurrency into it.
Got it. May I ask the volunteers to come on to the floor and help people, hush their conversations, because it's extremely distracting back here. Can I get some of the volunteers, Scott, Juliana. Can we get some volunteers back here to help people move their conversations back to the demo area? Thank you. Liz, tell us about your project.
Yeah, so we're probably more similar to Orc in that we believe that privacy is really important for people.
Right.
So one of the main features that we work with is client-side encryption for people, and also we work towards providing options for anonymity for people. So we do have Tor integration with our project too. And I should clarify that although we are a company, we build our technology off of an open source project called Tahoe Laughs, and it's LAFS, and it's a project that's been a while.
And so David mentioned some pricing there. How does the pricing structure work on your end?
Yeah, so right now, the product that we offer built on Tahoe Laughs, we just offer one price plan, but we're changing that in the short term. But okay. Yeah, I think in terms of pricing, we're a little bit, we're going to be higher than Saya.
Discount, maybe blockchain code discount.
Yeah, it's just the way that the...
Right, so there are a lot of folks out here, there are a lot of startup founders here. If they wanted to leverage the decentralized storage platforms, whether it's Saya or whether it's Storj or Org, what are the things you would recommend them to do? And maybe David, we can start with you. What are the 2 things, 3 things they can do to understand and get over that curve and say like, okay, I'm going to make a choice and these are the options I can use? What would you recommend? I mean, if I was a founder, I see a lot of these choices and then I see Amazon. How would you convince me to not go to Amazon? Yeah, so I think that at least with Saya and Orc, and I can't speak about Lease Authority, but I know that these projects are much earlier and that they fit specific use cases and come with, I guess, like early adopter risk. And so I would, right now with our early platform, our big focus is developers and enthusiasts and people who are really passionate about the core of decentralized storage. And so we really want to use that as sort of our I guess training ground for the platform so that we can iron out all the early stage stuff that comes with building a complicated distributed system. So I would actually, probably counsel startups today. It should be on their radar and they should be aware of what the advantages are. But I also think that if it's like a mission critical thing for you, at least on the blockchain side, I don't think any project is really there yet. James?
So my advice for entrepreneurs is if you insist on building something on Saya or Storj or IPFS right now, hedge your bets. Have a backup plan. None of these things work really great right now. None of us have caught up to Amazon in terms of services, reliability, stability. Have a backup plan, hedge your bets. Don't make it critical to your platform yet.
So James, right there on that topic, when do you think it will become ready for critical infrastructure?
This is an ongoing process. It's really hard to tell. In the blockchain space, you have the first 80% of development, and then you have the second 80% of development. And then once it's released, you have the third 80% and the fourth. We're going to be building this over the next several years. The Bitcoin itself has seen an 8-year adoption curve, and still most people have not heard of it. So it's going to be a very long time before these are used widely in production.
So I should buckle up.
I know that for Saya, on our production roadmap, certain use cases, such as like disaster recovery and data backup, are going to be ready long before other use cases like, say, CDN or say, like content distribution. And so I think that depending on where your storage needs fall, Saya might be a reasonable option for you as early as like 6 months. And then if you're on the more like high speed, careful data placement end of things, it might be more like 12, 18, 24 months.
The really notable exception here is Tahoe Laughs, which has been out in the wild for, I think, close to a decade now.
Yeah, the first commits were made about a decade ago. Yeah, so Tahoe Laughs has been in development for that long. So this is where we're a bit different. It's a project that's been solidly developed for those years. think though, so now we're focusing more on how do we allow masses of people to utilize this really great technology that we have.
How about you, Gordon?
I don't remember the original question.
Well, the original question was if you have a founder who wants to leverage this, what are the things that they can do and go forward with it?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo James's sentiment for sure. Hedge your bets, you know, and find. What I've seen is there's a lot of these storage projects are trying to, you know, have the shotgun effect. They're trying to just replace, you know, the cloud, and what we're seeing is problems with scaling in general with those platforms. So, you know, if you're looking to either, you know, start a storage project or invest in one, be hyper focused on a use case. Figure out what exactly it is that you're trying to solve, and then identify which of the projects aim to solve that the best. Because we work better when we're hyper-focused on specific problems instead of trying to solve everything at once. So,
yeah, this is really important within the distributed storage, cloud storage space. That
right.
Go ahead.
So, what would the top 3 use cases be? Let's say I've worked with Universal and Disney. Can I say that any one of these and they have massive, you know, music files, video files. Is that a use case that they can readily utilize today and reduce their cost from $21 per month down to maybe like 40 cents?
So on Saya today, I'd say that the use case we're most ready for is personal data backups, which could include music and videos, but like I'm thinking more in terms of like hard drives. So if you know, your whole computer tends to be a decent amount of data. Some people 0.5 terabyte, some people 2 or 3 terabytes. And that builds up if you're using something like Dropbox or Amazon. But Saya is, you know, it's slower, but then it's there for you. And you can, for the backup use case, I think, you know, that makes sense today.
Got it. So personal backup. James, what do you think?
Personal backup is a really good use case. When you talk about personal backup, you're targeting a completely different set of companies. You're targeting Box, Dropbox, Mozy, CrashPlan, that kind of thing. And the pricing model for those is very different from Amazon, but Saya still might be able to compete there as well. Typically, you do like a $5 unlimited plan or something like that. Personal backup's a great use case. Secure long-term storage is a good use case right now.
Okay.
Separate from backup.
Gordon or Liz?
80% of the data that goes to the cloud goes there to rot, and it's a huge waste. So I think for me, the primary use case that we're focused on is making the data available and being able to be transmitted, and then put on another computer. Once it's been distributed, at that point, you know, a flash drive in a safe is the most secure way to store anything. And so, you know, we should really be mindful about, we're trying to optimize and make more efficient, you know, the cloud. But we're still bound by the same problems where we're just dumping a bunch of data up there and never going to access it again, which is good, and which is, you know, so why long-term backup or archival storage is a good use case if you have critical data that needs to be, you know, protected or kept around. But how many people actually on a daily basis like go and dig into their, you know, their Dropbox, their hard drive backup? Like, how frequently do you access that? And the answer is only in disaster. So I don't know. We think we should be mindful of that.
Yeah, a lot of cloud storage is never accessed again because it's there in case of disasters. For companies, it's there in case there's a legal requirement to retrieve it and look at it. For individuals, it's there in case your computer crashes. It's true that 80% of it's never accessed, but that's because, you know, 80% of the time everybody's happy.
I think there's another 2 use cases that we also have been looking at that are very related, but there is the long-term storage, but there's also the wanting to have some data out in the cloud that's synced between devices that you know you can access from different locations and things. And so we're looking at that kind of data that you might access like twice a week. So maybe not every single day, but you want it to be conveniently there and between different devices. And then to add to that, to have the privacy aspects on that too, which is that you know that some corporation is not mining your data, so you feel more comfortable putting out like your sensitive health documents or you know, some information about yourself that you would prefer that other people weren't reading, and which we all have. But so that's another use case to add on there, is just, you know, being a little bit more aware of the privacy features of current cloud storage.
Got it. You mentioned data privacy. So how does that work? I mean, EU rules are completely different from on this side of the continent. I mean, how does that work, or is that not an issue at all?
Yeah, so SIA has two approaches to data privacy, and I do want to distinguish quickly between privacy and anonymity. So SIA will protect your data in the sense that no one can access it and no one can tell what you're storing. However, we don't have anonymity in the sense that people will generally know that it's you who is storing that data, and though they can't see it, if they suspect something about it, there's nothing to hide behind. So it's definitely a very different use case from what ORC does. And so for very, very sensitive things in oppressed regions, I just want to caution that privacy and anonymity are very different. But in SIA, what we do is first we encrypt all the data. Your data gets spread across generally around 50 machines, and every machine has data which is encrypted with separate keys. So any sort of collaboration, or even if one or two of the keys is compromised, nothing can happen to that data. And then the second thing is that one of the more unique features of the SIA protocol is the ability to blacklist hosts and even whitelist hosts. And so when it comes to things like EU privacy laws, where you're restricted to hosting only on machines in the EU, you can actually go and set up SIA. You can include some configuration options that will keep your data compliant with the law. So we do take that seriously.
Got it. And that's kind of like on the other end, and you're on the other end, right, Gordon? So
we have no way to enforce or know where the data is being stored. That's just the nature of the network. So the problem, to echo David's point about the difference between anonymity and privacy, if there's an adversary who's able to know, the destination, the sender and the destination of some controversial content, they have an opening to censor that data, whether it's through a denial of service attack or what have you. And so in this case, if I'm a whistleblower and I want to make some data, some content available to a wide audience, if you don't have the anonymity in this type of network, then it creates you can very quickly eliminate, and create a small surface area for attack to censor or to deny service to where that data is. Even if it can't be read, or even if it can't be, decrypted, it can still be denied service to. So it's really important for our use case to maintain that anonymity so that it becomes very difficult for any one party to censor the data. And if in the ORC network, objects continuously rebuild and they're continuously audited. And so once certain pieces of the data have been deemed to go offline or have been censored or the node is gone, the objects rebuild and then redistribute. So data is constantly in flux on the ORC network, and that's a product of its resistance to censorship.
Let's talk about resources. Do you guys have the resources it needs to build what you guys are building, or do you guys need help?
Help.
How much help, Gordon?
We're a volunteer-run network, and so and we're sponsored by a hackerspace that we established a couple of years ago, a nonprofit hackerspace. And so, at this point, we have developers, volunteer developers. We don't get paid. We do this because we love it, but it would really be nice if we could get paid. And donations are tax deductible to us. So if you believe in what we're doing and you want to help us, the two things that you can do are run a node and also make a charitable donation. And that's really the help that we need right now.
So run a node and make a charitable donation. And where are you located right now?
Just outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Got it.
I would argue that all of these projects need lots of help until our projects are easily usable by everybody who wants to use them. We need help.
Have you thought of doing a TGE or token generation event? We don't call them ICOs anymore, sorry. I have to call it TGEs.
That was the advice that I have gotten pretty consistently was, why don't you just do an ICO? We will not do an ICO. Probably never. Regardless of whether or not we have a token, the ORC project will never have an ICO, plain and simple.
Got it. David, how does that compare to yours? Because I know you did one, and from a resourcing standpoint, how are you?
So we did an ICO in 2014,
right.
Or a TGE.
Before it was cool.
And we raked in a record not breaking $100,000. Since then, we've done 2 equity rounds, which has pulled in another $1 million. So on the development front, we have the resources to keep a small team funded for the next year at least. And I do want to say though, in terms of help, I think that what we're trying to build with Saya is really more ideologically motivated. It's not like the cheap storage is a benefit, but what we really care about is, it makes me nervous to look at the internet and see when, AWS went down for like an hour or something a couple months ago, and people couldn't turn on the lights in their home. There were smart lights that couldn't turn on, and that just, I think Amazon runs something like 40% of the websites on the internet, or like, and it's uncomfortable to think about how much power Amazon and Google, Google running Gmail, have over the rest of us. And I think that we want to build a culture of people who know what they're doing and know what the stakes are and recognize like the deeper reasons to use a platform. So in terms of help, I think that we would really like to see our community grow, both in terms of numbers, but also in terms of depth of knowledge.
And how can they do that? I mean, do they go onto your site and sign up? Or they make a phone call to you, text?
Yeah, so the home for the Saya community is discord.gg/Saya. That's SIA. And we're very welcoming. We love new people. And we have probably 100 or 200 people who would just happily dive into a conversation about anything blockchain that's on your mind. And we'd love to see you there.
We have just a few minutes. Does anybody have any question for David, James, Gordon, or Liz? Anybody wants to come up, I can give you the mic. You can ask a question. Anyone of the developers?
Can I do the plug too?
Sure, go for it. Oh, yeah.
Just to let people know, so there's Tahoe Labs, Tahoe, TAHOE-LAFS.org, and that's for the open source project if you want to go look and contribute there. And then there's also leastauthority.com if you want to sign up for a paid service.
Thank you, Liz. All right, I think that wraps up this panel. Thank you, David. Thank you, James. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's the law. You got to buckle up.
Oh, I did.
No, you have 30 minutes. You can do however you want. Let me announce it. Guys, we have a couple more minutes to go, and I'll promise you'll have lunch. If you can just settle down, we have Jeff McDonald from NEM up on stage, and I'll give the floor to him. Jeff?
Wonder if my mic's okay. Hi, guys. Yeah, thank you. Probably a lot of you don't know very much about NIM, right? Yeah. I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about it. NIM is a blockchain that's written 100% from scratch. And a long time ago, in 2014, the developers of NIM were looking at blockchain and other products, and they thought, what would we do if we were going to make the ideal blockchain? And in 2014, they started coding, and they decided that what they wanted to do to make NIM different is make it very secure and very scalable, and have a lot of good features in it. So that's what they set out to do, and then NIM was launched in 2015, and we've been going ever since then. So let me tell you a little bit about some of these smart features that are built in, and the thing that sets NIM apart from other blockchains is that we have great APIs. NIM is a blockchain built by developers for developers. And these APIs allow people to build very easily. Now, traditionally, we've had very bad marketing, but we have a great technology. And now I'm starting to market better and spread the information about NIM, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming today to listen to this. Okay. If I can get that. Yep. Okay. Here is some of the contracts that we offer. We offer editable multi-signature contracts. We offer namespaces and domains. We offer apostille is updatable certificates of ownership and certificates of property that are transferable. We offer voting. We offer customizable assets. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these. Let me talk about namespaces and domains really quickly. NIM believes that for an economy to take place, we need trust. And one of the things that's given trust to the internet is the internet domain naming system. If you can imagine going to www.cheapwatches.com and you buy a Rolex, and they say it's real, but do you know that it's real? How do you know? Yeah, I don't know. But if you go to www.rolex.com and you buy a Rolex and you pay full price, do you get a real Rolex or not? We believe that we are getting a real Rolex, and that's the power of the internet domain naming system, that sellers and businesses and enterprises can make a name and people can trust that name. We have that on the NIM blockchain built in, and you can use your name to brand your assets, your certificates, your votes, your logic for your multi-signature contracts. Let me talk a little bit more about these. NIM is the dawn of smart, programmable money. And this is the promise of the blockchain, that we can have smart, programmable money. But NIM makes it very easy because we use these APIs. And one of the contracts that we have is multi-signature. And these are very editable and very easy to work with contracts. So a business account, for instance, could be an ICO account. And we have Alice and Bob and Chuck, and they want to control this account, right? So they become owners of this account. And you can do any combination that you want to on NIM, and it works across any of the wallets because it uses APIs. You're not locked into one system. An Android developer using Java for one company, his multi-sig contract works with a desktop developer using JavaScript, even though that they've never met, because they connect through this common NIM protocol to make these contracts work. And they're very editable. Organizations change over time. Business leaders come in, business leaders go, and these contracts need to be edited. And in NIM, it's literally just a few clicks or 1 or 2 lines of code with our SDK. Right? And so easily Chuck can be removed and Davey can be added. On NIM, we have smart programmable money, as I mentioned before. And obviously, we have transferable assets. This is what we always know. This is on Bitcoin. Bill sends Bitcoin to Bob. Bob sends Bitcoin to Alice, and so on and so on. It's completely transferable. Right? But in NIM, we offer assets that are also non-transferable. They can be programmed so that they cannot be sent to anybody. Again, just with 1 or 2 clicks. If Alice makes a coin and she sends it to Bob, Bob cannot send it to Bill or Chuck or David. He can only return it to Alice. This is really good for refundable coupons, like for a coffee shop. I own Jeff's Coffee Shop, and I want to give my customers a points card, and I don't want them trading it on the internet. So I have an option for tradable or non-tradable assets. And in NIM, you can also choose levies or fees on your assets. You can choose a flat fixed fee in any asset for any amount, or you can choose a percentage for any asset or any amount. And in NIM, because we have this levy feature, you can also make assets that can be locked into an account. It's programmed so that when Alice sends it to Bob or Alice sends it to David, he cannot send it to anybody. He cannot remove it from his account. It is locked in there forever. This is very good for citizenship. If a country is giving or a bank is giving KYC, right? If they are giving certificates to accounts to register them, they don't want these accounts selling their registration and their participation. Now, we also offer supplies that can be mutable You can make your supply go up or make your supply go down. Again, edit the contract very easy with a few clicks. You can pick fixed supply. There's a lot of different ways to customize these. I have a booth in the back. If anybody would like to see me do live demos, I'll be more than happy to demonstrate any of the things that I'm showing in my PPT today. This is not something that's going to happen a long time ago. This is actually 2-year-old technology. We offer apostille. This is certificates of authenticity, certificates of ownership, certificates of update. These certificates show that a product, again, it can be branded underneath a name, was made, and that it came from an authentic manufacturer. And when that product is transferred from person to person, these digital certificates on the blockchain can also be transferred from person to person. A lot of people ask me, can these be faked? They cannot be faked. Just like a Bitcoin cannot be faked. Bitcoin solved the problem of the double spend, right? Or I like to say double send. If I have a digital picture or I have a digital certificate, I can make a copy and I can send it to you, I can send it to you, I can send it to you. But now for the first time on the blockchain, I can have a digital certificate serialized, personalized, updatable. It has memos, it can be branded, and these certificates can be transferred from person to person to person, and they cannot be faked because it uses the same technology behind Bitcoin, the block concept, decentralization, cryptography, to show that they cannot be faked or altered. We offer voting on the NIM blockchain. And we have a lot of cool voting options: private voting, public voting, voting by proof of importance. NIM uses proof of importance, not proof of work. And this is really important because proof of importance cannot be Sybil attacked. If somebody wants to attack this voting system, they would literally have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars and plan ahead weeks or months to make sure that they had enough power on the NIM blockchain, enough importance on the NIM blockchain to try to attack a vote. It's not going to happen. And all of this is done with APIs, as I mentioned before. This is the power of the NIM blockchain. A month ago, I did a developer conference, and I had a developer come in. He'd never worked on Bitcoin or Ethereum or NIM or any blockchain. He just heard that blockchain was cool, and he wanted to learn about it. And he came to my developer conference. He was a good developer. And at the end of the conference, it took 4 hours to teach developers how to work on NIM. I gave him some API documentations and a list of open source apps. And I gave a bounty. Who can link a Twitter account to a NIM blockchain account cryptographically so that they're one and the same? He stayed up all night long, read the API documentation, and then the next morning when I woke up, had a delivered app working, linking accounts, Twitter accounts, and the NIM blockchain. And I'm going to show a lot of other examples in just a minute, and all of these are basically built by single developers working part-time on weekends and nights and evenings that show the power of the NIM smart contract system and the APIs. This is an example of an existing system, and it's really easy for people, existing businesses, to incorporate because they can just immediately connect their current system into our current API system. And we're having a lot of enterprise systems and even governments show the NIM protocol interest. And we're working on these deals. We're going to have some really exciting news. We've already had some. We're going to have a lot more coming. Anybody can say that, but just watch. This is my favorite part of the speech. If you can watch anything or listen to anything, please listen to this. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen for any blockchain. It's unlike anything before. This is called an aggregate transaction. And it looks like it's one transaction. Oh, come on. That's painful. Okay, well, we'll forget the animations. This is 3 transactions in one transaction. They're all underneath one block. Block 16722, this is the hash. This is not something that we want to do someday or we hope to do something. I made this transaction myself. This is on my computer. 3 transactions. We have transaction number 1, transaction number 2, transaction number 3. Now, the amazing thing is that we have an initiator, the same initiator, but usually in blockchains are a push system. I push my Bitcoins from me to you. I initiate a transaction from my account to your account. And that's what this transaction is right here. But this transaction is a pool transaction. Nobody's ever done this before. I am pooling cryptocurrency from your account to my account. This is how the traditional financial system works, on pool, not push transactions. And this one up here, this is even more amazing because this is a third-party initiated transaction for the sender and the receiver. This is me initiating a transaction for Alice to Bob. I am not sending the money, I am not receiving the money. And in this transaction, I have half-price coupons. I have Korean wons. I have orange juice coupons. This is 3 different cryptocurrencies swapped atomically, instantly, between 3 different accounts in one block. And we can start to do some really amazing things. There's also 3 different messages in here. In NIM, we offer 3 different kinds of messaging. We can do plain text, we can do encrypted, or we can do hexadecimal. Let me give you an example, one of the examples that I'm really excited about with this type of transaction. And it solves a big problem that we always have in cryptocurrency. If I want to make Jeff coin, and I send Jeff coin to my friend in Jeff Wallet, and my friend says, what can I do with this? And I say, you can go to Jeff Shop. But first, go to Coinbase. Register your ID, register your credit card, wait 3 days, get Bitcoin, transfer that to your favorite exchange that for Zim, then transfer the Zim to Jeff Wallet, and now you can spend Jeff Coin. Right? It's a big problem. We've all been through that. That's not a problem anymore. Because with multi-party, multi-asset, multi-message, atomic swaps created on the fly instantly, this becomes no problem. Now, with Jeff Coin, me as the creator of Jeff Coin and the creator of Jeff Wallet, when anybody uses my wallet, what I can do is, let's say they have $10 of Jeff Coin, and they want to send $5 to their friend. They say, hey, friend, download this wallet. And they download the wallet. And he says, I'm going to send you $5 of Jeff Coin. And the friend says, okay, great. What happens is, I, as the creator of Jeff Coin, in the wallet, they send me 2 cents worth of Jeff Coin. I send them 1 cent worth of Zim. And then they send their friend $5 worth of Jeff Coin. And these 3 transactions, me sending him Zim, him sending me 2 cents worth of Jeff Coin, and then him sending his buddy $5 of Jeff Coin, all gets put into one transaction, initiated at the same time. I, as the creator of Jeff Coin, just made 1 cent profit off of this transaction. And it can go from person to person to person to person. And they don't need to know what Bitcoin is. They don't even need to know what Ethereum is or Zim is. They don't even need to know that they're using a blockchain. What they have is just money in their wallet that's frictionless coming in and frictionless coming out. This is just one of 3 amazing things in Catapult, our next version of NIM, that I'm really excited about. And the other 2 are just as revolutionary and have solved problems that other people haven't even begun to address yet or think about. The new version of NIM called Catapult is unlike anything we've ever had before. Let me give you some examples of some projects built on NIM. Video games. We all think that there's an obvious place for video games and blockchains. One developer by himself, his name's Greg, working in weekends and night times, completely integrated PackNim into the NIM blockchain. You can start to play the game with a NIM token called the PackNim asset. Or if you don't want that, you can watch commercials and you'll get a free asset. And if you play the video game very good, you get more assets and you can trade these with your friends and then they can play it for free. Or if you do really good and you're the best player of the day, you can get a vanity asset that shows you're the best player of the day. And that can be transferable or non-transferable. It depends on how the video game maker wants to make it. Here's another example of a project. All these are real projects. They're open source. You can download them, try them out today, fork them, do whatever you want to with them. This guy made MP3s. He built his own MP3 music store. He built his own payment gateway with the NIM protocol. You can now download his MP3s and pay on his website with Zim. This is called IONIM. This is a complete and working integration of the IoT and the NIM blockchain. You make a certificate with the technology I talked about before called Apostle. You get a certificate. That certificate is the owner of a device. Whoever owns that certificate in their blockchain account now has the rights to turn that item on and off. Let's say a light bulb. If I own the certificate, I can turn the light bulb on and off, and only me. Now, we don't really need certificates to turn light bulbs on and off, right? But the promise of this is that someday the IoT will grow and we will find really good combinations for the blockchain and the IoT. And these certificates are transferable, right? If someone's renting my house, I can give them the certificate and now they have the rights to turn the light bulbs on and off and I don't. Or the door locks or the windows or whatever you want. Here's another one called NimPay. I talked earlier about you can create your own smart programmable money. This is an open source app for iOS and Android. Anybody could fork it and literally within minutes create your own currency, and within a few more minutes of forking this app, have your own app. This one is called Zim Sign. There's a problem with the PPT, but this is a smart signing contract. This is a smart signing contract that can be distributed across different nodes, and it can have filters built into it to sign a transaction or not sign a transaction with a multi-sig contract. And you can set it for filters or secret passwords or limits or a white list of accounts or a black list of accounts. It's a smart signing distributed contract. You can put it on 4 different nodes, and node number 1 checks, node number 2 checks, node number 3 checks. All the transactions are signed and it goes through. Here's another project called LuxTag. Full disclosure, I work at this company. We make luxury certificates for luxury items, blockchain certificates that can be transferred from person to person. For instance, a luxury watch certificate. When you buy the watch, you get the certificate on the blockchain. And when you transfer the watch or sell the watch, you can transfer the certificate. But you can also update, and you can add memos to the certificate. So it's not just a certificate of ownership, it's a certificate of update. If the watch has been oiled or repaired, updates can go onto that certificate of ownership. And what happens is you get a digital legacy that shows the whole history of the item, who owned it, what they did, where they lived. It all can be recorded and transferred generation after generation after generation because the blockchain never gets turned off. Even if the LuxTag company goes out of business, this is an open source protocol. The blockchain lives on. The certificates live on. Here's another example of a project. They're working with NIM today to help sponsor our booth. This is CUMSA. They have early access to the Catapult technology that I mentioned before, and they're using it to build a revolutionary new kind of exchange system. And the owner of the company of CUMSA, Tech Bureau, has been licensed in Japan. It's one of the 11 registered and licensed companies in Japan to build a cryptocurrency exchange. And they're going to offer really good one-stop shop ICOs. And people know that they're going to get a really good product. It's incorporated with Bitcoin, NIM, Ethereum, because it's utilizing some of this really advanced technology that I mentioned before, and some of it that I haven't mentioned. So that's a little bit about NIM and a little bit of an introduction. But I want to say really quickly that I'm very excited about blockchain. A long time ago, I was working on Wikipedia. And when I first started working on Wikipedia, everybody thought I was crazy. This is when it first came out. And I was making articles on Wikipedia. And I would show my Wikipedia articles to my friends and people, and they would say, this cannot work. Wikipedia cannot work. Anybody can edit it. Anybody can say anything. And I said, no, it's going to be awesome. Right now, it's not production ready. These articles all suck. I wrote them myself, but it will be awesome someday. Admittedly, a lot of my articles have since been deleted because they were that bad. But some of my articles that I started and originated live on today, and they have become very, very, very good articles. And at the time when Wikipedia came out, people told me that encyclopedias were the single source of truth, that you could trust an encyclopedia. But Wikipedia has proved that we can decentralize knowledge and crowdsource people from all over to make this incredible source of information. And I believe that is the same thing as the blockchain today. A lot of people in this crowd, when you talk about blockchain, people maybe laugh at you, or they say it's never going to work, but I believe it's going to. And when I see NIM, and I see how easy it is for people to build all kinds of apps on the protocol and make this and that, these are things that the world needs. And I believe probably almost anybody here listening today, listening to this speech, has something to contribute to this blockchain movement. Something that we can do to make the world a much better place. Just like a long time ago, anybody could have contributed to a Wikipedia article. So thank you all for listening, and I'll be at my booth. If you have any questions, please come by. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
If you guys have not taken your badges during lunchtime, please go get your badges. We are going to actually start clearing out the VIP areas and the immutable and the decentralized passes, because we have a lot of people who have the tickets, but they're not able to sit here. So if you don't have a badge, we'll ask you to go to the back of the main stage. So just make sure during lunchtime you go get your badge. And if you have a decentralized pass, which is the black one, you're allowed to sit on these tables and chairs that you see in the front. And right behind them is the immutable, and right behind them is the transparent passes. So just housekeeping task. And if you guys can take your seats, we will get with our next presentation shortly. Thank you.
Hope you guys are enjoying the Indian food. Just have a quick announcement to make. Social media is uncompensated work. Think about that for a second. We spend most of our lives on our mobile phones, developing these cricks in our necks, sort of connected to these devices. We're sharing, commenting, posting, authoring. Jeff mentioned that he'd written thousands of articles for Wikipedia, all uncompensated labor. And it's funny because, we literally had a war in this country about uncompensated labor. And as I look across the room, I get really excited, and I look at the next generation of communities that are going to be built using empowerment instead of exploitation. And tools like the blockchain certainly have a chapter to play in that story. So I'm Ariel Jalali, co-founder of Sensei, and we began Sensei 3 years ago with one fundamental belief about humanity, that every human is valuable. I look across this room and I see a warehouse of information, life experience and knowledge that deserves attribution, deserves the ability to be shared with the world. So we built this really interesting little thing called Sensei that lets you tap anyone on the world on the shoulder and have a chat with them about anything you might need in terms of advice and opportunities. And today, I'm very excited to introduce someone to the stage who has really embodied our mission of every human being valuable. To the extent that in our early days, she went all in, maxed out her savings and credit cards, went full digital nomad to push this mission as we were raising our first round of fundraising. And we are expanding Sensei beyond the initial project. She's gotten our community growing to a thriving group of 3 million plus awesome humans who have transacted 21 million Sensei coins in a closed loop. And we thought that it would make a lot of sense to open up all of our capabilities and our tools to a broader community to empower the next generation of communities. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-founder, Crystal Rose.
Thank you. Thanks, Ariel. Blockchain Beach. I'm really excited to be here with a tribe of people who are all working towards the same mission. We are innovating in a way never before seen in the world, and we're doing it by demanding better governance, by being more transparent, by having better values with each other and creating value together. I'm Crystal Rose, the CEO of Sense, and Ariel and I have been working on Sensei for a long time, really pushing forward this mission, and today things really are making sense. So recently, researchers have devised a way to connect the very first human brain to the internet in real time. And this is big news because it means that for the first time ever, we're starting to see a global connected network of humans that truly can transact information together seamlessly. Think of every single brain as a node on a network, and we're all walking around with all this data on our heads. What do we do with it? How do we transact it together? Well, first we have to connect all of the humans together in a better way, and that's the first thing that we set out to do. We enable better human connections. Arguably, humans are the most successful species on the planet because of our ability to connect. We give stories to each other and we transact ideas. Every single thing that we do originates with conversation and with good ideas. So today you can think of everyone being connected globally. It really seems like with 5 billion people having devices, we are connected together. And the most ubiquitous thing that we do is text message. Secondarily, we are all on chat applications. Teenagers today spend 6 hours on chat and social media apps on average. And most of that is one-on-one communication. The thing is, though, it's fundamentally broken. Centralized messaging is still a problem. Everything that we do is connected into single centralized messaging systems. And what that means is that your data is owned by someone, your contact list is owned by someone else, SMS in and of itself used to be only interoperable between carriers, meaning I could only send a message from AT&T to AT&T. And one day a protocol layer was created and allowed AT&T to talk to Verizon or T-Mobile, but that's an intermediary that caused a fee and found a way to create a layer between them. So at Sensei, we wanted to create the same protocol but across messengers. And Sensei is an interoperable messaging system that allows anyone to connect freely between any centralized messenger. So someone in Facebook Messenger can talk to someone in Slack, and we connect people based on what they know rather than who they know. So think of your social graph flipped upside down, and instead you're connecting to people who are on the stranger graph. This is a really quick demo of Sensei just to see how it works. Sensei is a contact that lives in every messenger that you have. And Sensei is actually a chatbot, so you can talk to Sensei. It's an AI-powered chatbot. You can ask Sensei for anything that you need, and Sensei will find the right human and connect you directly to them. And at the end of that conversation, you can have a transaction. You give them Sensei coins. We saw that as the value that humans could transact together just to show some gratitude or show a thanks for that conversation. And Forbes had said that Sensei is a step forward in the meshing of our world of humanity with the future of chatbots. We're really proud that we've taken AI and we've created a layer that allows humans to get better and augments them rather than replaces them. We believe that the future of intelligence is human. It's not artificial. Forbes also said that human connection is still a much more valuable resource than marketing data. And this is really important because we believe that the connection is the most valuable thing because it often results in a transaction. So that's the next step. How do we define human value? If we're going to have a transaction, we have to know how valuable that transaction is. And when we're talking about humans, that's something that is really hard to quantify. So think about yourself. How do you define your own value? What is it? Is it your, what are your principles? And I think that that's a really important message, and we saw that at the beginning of today's talks, and we're going to see that common thread throughout all of blockchain technology. Defining your principles and sticking to them up front is very important. So at Sensei, we defined our principles up front. Every human is valuable. We are all connected, and everyone is a sensei. When you think of sensei, you might think of like the Japanese sensei, a mentor or a teacher, someone who gives you information, and literally the translation is someone who's been there before. It's every single person has knowledge that they can share, and every single person is valuable. There's another principle in Japanese called ikigai, and we can see our human value a little bit more clearly if we look at this. So think about the things that you love, and the things that you're good at, and the things that benefit society, like what does the world need? And then there's the stuff that gets you paid. Now, arguably, if you can connect the top three, what you love, what you're good at, and what the world needs, then capital is going to follow. But the sweet spot in the middle of all of those that's the ikigai, and that's your reason for being or your life purpose. But one thing you're going to notice that's missing from this, the thing that does not define you, is your stuff. And nowhere in this does it say that there's any asset other than what's in yourself that defines you as a human. And that's important because today the only way that we create capital typically is with our assets. We can rent out our apartment on Airbnb, or we can rent out our car on Uber. We have a really amazing sharing economy that's being built around the things that we own. And so with Sense, we are finding the things that we intrinsically own. We believe that the most valuable asset that everyone has is their mind. So we're defining this as your human capital. It's a working word, probably better described as value, but let's think of what you can use that you intrinsically own for a second that you can earn value on. Your skills, your life experience, your knowledge, and then social contributions. These are the contributions you're making every single day. You probably have done that recently, something on Twitter, Facebook, any social connection, and think about the value that you're getting back from that. It's quantifiable. It's in a number. It's in followers, likes, hearts, favorites. It feels really good, yet it doesn't really give you a reward. There's no transaction that happens when you're giving all your time to the social networks that are holding all your data and earning from it. And they're earning a lot. Facebook is earning $8 billion a quarter selling your data to advertisers. And we think that's complete nonsense. So this is Sense. Sense takes the contributions that you've made anywhere digitally and gives you a value for them. In this instance, GitHub contributions have earned you some cents, 26 cents. And you can add Reddit as well, or any other contributions that have been locked up in centralized places. your knowledge and your contribution there, we call that knowledge attribution. It exists across all these networks. So you can continue to add cents to your wallet as you continue to create contributions throughout the internet and throughout your digital experience. You're providing what you have intrinsically, your human capital, to other people. And so the way to create value out of this is we created a token, an Ethereum ERC20 token called Cents that can be exchanged across the network for other cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency is something that is very easy to use and ubiquitous, and everyone should have it. Now, the first two maybe aren't as true. Cryptocurrency is actually still very hard to use, and while everyone should have it, very few people do. That number, 5 to 10 million, while we have 5 billion people with devices, that's not a typo. We still have such a small fraction of the people who are able to use digital currency today. Yet it should be as easy to use as sending a message. And so we did just that. We allow you to create and send a message that includes some form of cryptocurrency, and this is called Cents. It's as easy to use as sending a message through text, and we did this by creating smart contracts within the chat. So we believe that human intelligence makes sense, and this is the thing that we want to connect everybody together to transact. We call this connected intelligence, and so our goal really is to connect everyone together with no intermediaries, and this is the goal of all decentralized applications. We want to provide open access to knowledge, and this is where our API for developers allows you to connect and tap into the larger human network and the data that the humans have created and provided. And we create a value exchange with attribution on the blockchain. So that's really important, because knowledge attribution on the blockchain, that's the thing that you're going to own. That's the thing that you can provide to any network to create value from it. And we want to make that human information transfer scalable. So we want you, the human, to become scalable and make every contribution that you create valuable. Sensei Core technology, we've been working on this for quite some time. It's been 3 years, 2 years as a product. Within those 2 years, as Ariel said, we have 3 million people who are using our product today. This is just Sensei, the application. And these purple circles are the ones that represent where Sense comes in. Knowledge access, knowledge attribution, and peer-to-peer digital transactions. For the first time ever, we're able to open up and create a value for your knowledge on the blockchain. So Sense is the token for human capital, and Sensei is one application that is a great proof of concept, and developers anywhere can create bots just like Sensei on top of humans.ai. That's our blockchain protocol. A little bit of our stats today. We're really proud that we've been in the community here building in LA. We have some amazing venture-backed partners, Norwest, Draper, and Graycroft, and now we're moving into an era where cryptocurrency and the new open area of raising money has occurred. So Blockchain Capital and TOS have been the first to back us, and we're now bringing on platform partners. So again, anyone can build on top of us. We believe also that developers make sense. Developers are our core community. So we wanted to open the ability to share into our network with developers first. Creating an open token means that we're going to create something that everyone can share and everyone can create value on. So the first allocation goes straight to developers. If you are a developer, you can sign up here and get involved with the pre-sale. And then we're opening up a main token sale to everyone. By opening this up, we're creating a bigger ecosystem. This is a global mission that's much bigger than ourselves. We want developers everywhere to be able to access our platform, so we're opening it up. We want to allow people to build on top of it, and we also want to allow communities to grow. So we're encouraging anyone who has a chatbot or who has any community that they want to leverage this human knowledge attribution to build on top of Sense and build on top of humans AI with us. So we believe that rewarding human intelligence makes sense, and we would love for you to join the journey with us. We've built a business around conversation, so please, if you have a question or would love to have conversation with us, our team is here, we're in the back, and the Sense team would love to talk to you. And come and make sense with us. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I guess a lot of people are gone eating lunch, maybe. A little excitement going on. I have a lot of good things for you guys. There's going to be a raffle drawing for hardware wallets. We're giving away 50 wallets today from cryptohardwarewallet.com, which is cryptohwwallet.com. I want to give a brief introduction about myself. My voice may be a little shaky. I just came back from Prague yesterday. I didn't get to sleep until 2 a.m. yesterday. My name is Joseph. I found my company, cryptohwwallet.com, this year, early in March. And I happened to encounter a good time for cryptocurrency boom. So we enjoyed a really good ride that we made some decent money. But I don't see so many people that are excited. Today's Bitcoin almost hit 5,000. I don't know how you guys are securing your Bitcoins. I'm here to give you some solutions. One of the best ways to secure your cryptocurrency is hardware wallets. And I have all these major wallets that give me the opportunity to present some of the best wallets available that are certified Bitcoin.org. We're giving away, like I said, 50 of them. I want to introduce you all the wallets. Maybe some of you already know what they are, but some of you new to the space may not know what they are. But first of all, we have Digital Bitbox from Switzerland. This is a Bitcoin only wallet. Actually, it supports the Ethereum ERC20 token. This is made in Switzerland. I was just at their office a couple days ago. That's in Switzerland. They are sponsoring a total of 20 wallets given away in 2 days. Today we're going to give away 10, and tomorrow we're going to give away 10. So total we're going to give away 20. And then the next one is by Trezor. Everybody knows Trezor. Found by Satoshi Labs out of Czech Republic. There's Alina, the ex-founder. We were in Czech Republic, had a really good time in Prague yesterday, or 2 days ago. But anyway, they are sponsoring for 30 wallets, 15 per day, that we're going to give away. We're going to just call out the number on your badge. Make sure you have your badge. If we call your number, if you're not here, most likely you're not able to claim, so we'll go to the next person. And then the next one we have is a Ledger. Ledger is out of France. We are having a total of maybe 30 per day. For this one is HW1. They didn't sponsor this, but I'm willing to give away because they're also part of the big family as a hardware wallet. So we're going to give away these two. The one that's missing is KeepKey, which we are still working with them. We are trying to get some wallets from them, but we're not able to hand out any free today. But I am handing out our own premium leather case for Trezor, Ledger Blue, as well as KeepKey. These are premium made, custom made, genuine leather cases for these wallets. They will access your wallets beautifully. It will give you the protection, give you a luxury and style that when you use your wallet, because your wallets are going to store hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is like a Swiss bank. You want to give it some nice accessories, and then we're planning to continue to add more designs. We want to specialize in this area. In the meantime, we're looking for resellers. If you're out in other parts of the world, you're looking to resell our product, we're more than happy to work with you. We can sign a special contract. You can represent our product in all parts of the world. We're actively looking for that. And again, myself, as far as my history in cryptocurrency, I got myself involved in cryptocurrency in 2014. I came across with a booth in Las Vegas, a CES show. I was able to receive $5 in Bitcoins at that time. I was very excited. After that, I got obsessed over cryptocurrency. Ever since I became an enthusiast, obviously I became a promoter, advocate, and I've been to a lot of conferences. Obviously, I'm sponsoring this one. I spent quite a bit of time learning about crypto, networking with all the professionals. I've been to all the conferences, met a lot of you guys actually that you're on the speaker panel. This is kind of my first time speaking on a major event, but probably you will see me more showing at these events. I have something really, really nice that I want to work, which is my final ultimate dream. I'm going to form a foundation called cryptoforall.org. It's going to be an educational foundation. We'll be funded by my own company, CryptoHW Wallet, to help the third world country people to get to know cryptocurrency, because I feel they are the real ones that have this need because they have lack of access to financial services, not like the Western world. We want to bring this to them, trying to recruit some good educators out in these areas. we're going to pay these YouTubers, educators out of our fund, and then help these guys get on either Steam it or any type of crypto, at least exposed to them so that they can be included in the financial grid, I guess, currently with which they're isolated. As we all know, a lot of them are unbanked because they don't have this access. We have the luxury in the Western world, which we have access to all credit cards and financial services, but they don't. But now crypto is here, they have a chance, they have an opportunity. I was brought up in a very impoverished village overseas in China when I was little. I grew up in China, so I knew how a impoverished lifestyle was, that these people have very little opportunity to succeed, but cryptocurrency will probably change that. I'm really excited to share that, and hopefully all of you guys can be on board and be part of that. That's my speech today. Thank you very much. And remember to get your free prizes later on when you off stage. Thank you.
All right. So we're going to take a 30-minute break. Whew, we made it. Check out the demo area, meet some people, network, hang out, and we'll be back in 30 minutes. Thank you.